After crossing into another world, Chen Yang obtained the with heaven same lifespan system. As long as he endured for a certain period of time, he would receive rewards granted by the system. Being threatened by others. A gentleman's vengeance may wait 10 years. No, even 100 years is not too late. 10,000 years is too short, so I do not contend. First set a small goal, live for tens of millions of years. Chen Yang had been in the middle of a meal when he transmigrated. Bowl and chopsticks in hand, he stood there utterly bewildered. After he figured out what had happened, he calmly finished the last bite of rice in his bowl before glancing around. He was standing in a grove of trees, thin mist curling around him. It was early morning, and nothing seemed particular. Ding-dong, congratulations to the host for awakening the system. The sudden voice startled Chen Yang so much that his bowl and chopsticks slipped from his hands and shattered all over the ground. This had been his tool for eating, yet Chen Yang did not feel the slightest heartache. Now that he had a system, good days would not be far off. From here on, he would surely stride all the way to the top, humiliating and slapping faces along the way. Yet there was not a single person around. Scratching his head, he decided to first take a look at this system. With heaven same lifespan system binding complete. At the start, the host is granted endless lifespan, sharing the same span as heaven itself. As long as the heavenly Tao does not perish, the host shall not die. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the system reward, a celestial realm cookbook. Each time you endure a segment of time, the host will receive generous rewards from the system. After the system finished its explanation, it fell silent. Chen Yang, holding a cookbook in his hands, was left in a daze. That was it. No matter how he called out to the system afterward, there was no response. Helpless Chen Yang could only carry the cookbook and walk down the mountain. He had not gone far before he saw an ancient-style little town. Gaotian town was simple and honest in its customs, harmonious and prosperous. There Chen Yang settled down. In the first year, he worked odd jobs throughout the town, finally saving up a sum of money and opening a small restaurant, gaining a livelihood of his own. In the second year, with the Celestial Realm cookbook in hand, he quickly carved out his own reputation in the town. People came and went from the small restaurant in an endless stream. Its fame spread far and wide, drawing countless diners from all directions, all just to taste a single bite of Chen Yang's cooking. Soon Chen Yang became one of the town's great householders, held in respect by all. Such days went on for 5 years, yet Chen Yang did not feel them to be dull. One evening, after closing the doors of his restaurant and ending the day's business, he returned to his mansion of over 500 square meters in the middle of the town. Just as he lay down, he caught a faint, elusive, damp scent, like something long sealed away, suddenly seeing the light of day. He could not help but frown. Lately, he had been smelling this in the town again and again. Whose ancestral grave had been dug up, or what? He did not think much more of it. But the very next day, the entire town was enveloped by a gigantic, transparent light screen. A colossal palace appeared at the center of the town, and by sheer coincidence, it manifested right in front of Chen Yang's doorstep. When Chen Yang woke up, he was utterly baffled. His front gate was blocked by the palace. He had no choice but to climb over the wall to get out. Circling this colossal thing twice, he discovered there was not even a single door, so he returned to the town, intending to open his shop as usual. The townsfolk were equally astonished by this suddenly appearing immortal palace, yet none dared approach it rashly. To them, anything belonging to immortals was not to be profaned. Soon the area outside the immortal palace was filled with incense offerings, and the ground was covered with devout worshippers kneeling and praying. As a firm materialist warrior, Chen Yang naturally scampered over to burn 2 sticks of incense as well, yet nothing happened. Soon after, people discovered that the light screen above the town allowed only exit but no entry. This was misery for many. Those who stepped out and found themselves unable to return simply took their families and left, yet some chose to remain, for this little town was their roots. After about a month of peaceful days, countless cultivators suddenly appeared outside the town, hurling themselves at the barrier like moths to a flame, each trying to enter and seize immortal fate. It was said this was the palace of an immortal, within which lay innumerable heavenly treasures, objects that made every cultivator's heart pound with desire. Chen Yang understood none of this. He lay in his 500 square meter mansion, sitting in a rocking chair, gazing. Another cloud of blood mist exploded in the sky. An immortal who, in the eyes of mortals, could do anything. Yet before this light screen, he was like a mayfly shaking a tree, utterly powerless. Is living not good enough? Why must you cut the line? Chen Yang grumbled inwardly, and in this gentle rocking, he actually drifted off to sleep. When he woke, a great battle had already erupted outside the town. Countless cultivators fighting to seize this illusory immortal palace had fallen into a massive melee. In a short time, corpses littered the field. The area beyond the town became a living hell. Those beings whom ordinary folk usually had to look up to were now like pigs in a slaughterhouse, their bodies pierced in silence by their enemies, dying with eyes wide open. Chen Yang was deeply shaken by what he saw. Cultivation was far too terrifying. He would rather just lie flat. This thought suddenly surfaced in his heart. Then he flopped back into his rocking chair. What should I eat today? Indeed, the battle beyond the light screen had not affected him or the lives of the townspeople. Life still had to go on. The slaughter outside the town continued for half a year. In the end, the victor was a burly man with a rough face wielding twin blades. He killed all his enemies, then stood in midair laughing wildly, his entire body stained with blood, looking like a mad demon. The first thing he did after his victory was to seal every passage leading out of the town. Anyone who came out he would kill. There would be no exceptions. Everything within this immortal palace belongs to me. He gripped his twin blades and struck them heavily against the ground, addressing the town word by word. He firmly believed that even if he could not break in, the protective array of this immortal palace would one day be exhausted. He was still young, he could afford to wait. Yet this was misery for those living in the town. Now they could not even run. Fortunately, with the light screen's protection and the supplies within the town, they had enough to survive for a time. The burly man stood guard for 10 full years. For 10 years, wind could not move him, thunder could not shake him. He stood like a green pine, steady as an old dog. Aren't you tired? From time to time, Chen Yang would carry a meal over stand before the burly man with the light screen between them and chat with him. The aroma of the food drifted through the barrier, making the burly man swallow hard, his gaze toward Chen Yang nearly murderous. When the light screen is exhausted, that will be the day you die. I'll see how long you can endure. We'll discuss it when that day comes. Chen Yang, bowl in hand, spoke without fear. Once he finished speaking, he began to eat in great mouthfuls. This celestial realm cookbook truly lived up to its name. Every dish recorded within could make even immortals' fingers itch to taste, let alone a slightly stronger cultivator. The burly man could no longer bear it, yet he could do nothing to Chen Yang. You will die a miserable death. I'll flay your skin, tear out your tendons, refine your soul into a puppet so you never find release for all eternity. He raged helplessly through the light screen, while Chen Yang had already finished his meal and gone back to wash the. Another 40 years passed. The town's supplies were exhausted. With no food, they starved to death. If they went outside, they would be killed. Either way meant death, and many chose to end their own lives. Chen Yang was powerless to change this. He was no savior. Yet as he watched the townsfolk with whom he had lived for nearly half a century, a wave of helplessness arose in his heart. If he ever soared high one day, he did not wish to let such a tragedy repeat itself. He went from house to house burying the townspeople's corpses. It was the only thing he could do for now, for if he did not bury them, soon they would rot. As he was carrying a corpse past one household, he suddenly heard the cry of a baby. Chen Yang, driven by curiosity by a sound, pushed the door open and discovered a cradle-bound girl in the room. Above her, two lifeless bodies hung ominously while she stared blankly at her deceased parents, weeping without emotion. Poor soul, he murmured. Chen Yang removed the corpses and cradled the girl in his arms, then roamed the town to gather whatever food he could, sustaining her in the barren times. Brother, what is that thing? 10 years later, the gaunt girl pointed toward a burly man outside the town. That is a monster, Chen Yang replied in a tone of casual indifference. Chen Yang replied casually. Another 10 years passed, and the town had completely run out of food. The girl grew even more emaciated. Brother, I want to go out, she said. Clutching Chen Yang, the girl said, let me go. Without a trace of emotion, Chen Yang replied, go, believing that her life had already reached its end. Rather than letting her perish naturally, he preferred that the burly man ended in suffering. Thus the girl slowly walked toward a luminous curtain. With a swift stroke, the burly man decisively ended her life. From the shadows, Chen Yang observed the scene with a calm gaze. One dream, 1,000 years. True to its name, when Chen Yang closed his eyes, it was merely a nap for him, while outside a millennium passed, and his cultivation advanced with the flow of time. But such a reward was of no use to him now, for Chen Yang had yet to formally embark upon the path of Xiaoxian. Nevertheless, since the reward had been bestowed, it could not go unused. Chen Yang stepped out from the shadows and approached the burly man, who, startled by his sudden appearance, asked a question. Why are you immortal? The burly man inquired. With his hands clasped behind his back, Chen Yang cast a cold glance at him. Instead of replying, he sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes in meditation. The burly man was astonished. What was Chen Yang doing? He sensed not even a trace of cultivation in him. Could it be that Chen Yang wished to engage in a prolonged stalemate? With that thought, he let out a cold laugh. As a golden core cultivator with a lifespan of 500 years, he believed no one could outlast him. Then he straightened his posture and fixed his gaze on Chen Yang. However, he never expected that Chen Yang would remain seated for 50 years. Watching the unchanging figure, the burly man felt for the first time a pang of unease and spoke up. Help me enter the immortal palace, and I shall not kill you, the burly man proposed. Chen Yang kept his eyes closed, silent as if in slumber. 100 years passed. I will teach you the art of cultivation. Once within the immortal palace, shall we share it equally? A gust of wind carried his words away. Another 100 years elapsed, during which the burly man's body began to age and his gaze grew increasingly weary. My entire life I have pursued the celestial path to attain immortality. If I were to end it now, what disgrace would that be? I shall not give up, he declared. He muttered to himself, bolstering his resolve. Little did he know that the eternal life he had coveted was but a nascent gift inherent in Chen Yang. Some are born into fortune, yet the sleeping Chen Yang remained oblivious to all of this. As autumn gave way to spring, winter to summer, and the years passed by, Chen Yang's body became blanketed in dust and ensnared by withered vines, so that at a casual glance, one might not even recognize him as human. The burly man fared no better. His chin was adorned with a long beard trailing to the ground, and his feet had long sunk into the earth, as if nature itself had claimed him. Were it not for the support of his twin blades, he would have long collapsed. In his withered state, he reckoned that he had waited for over 400 years. He contemplated surrender, yet at his age could he muster the strength to move? Entering the immortal palace remained his only hope, but was there truly any hope left? Gazing at the disheveled yet unchanging Chen Yang, the burly man felt regret for the first time. What kind of creature was this? 400 years, his entire lifespan, whereas for Chen Yang, it was as fleeting as a simple meal. At the end of one's life, even final words carry a gentle grace. My name is Yuan Kuei of the Yuan family of Beizhou, and the only golden core powerhouse in the region. In this lifetime, I fear I may never return. If possible, could someone deliver a message to the overlords of Beizhou? Seeing that Chen Yang remained silent, Yuan Kuei continued, tell the Yuan family that I have never abandoned my quest for immortality, though this path leads to no fruition. Let them cultivate diligently, and once at the golden core stage, cease and enjoy the remainder of life. What is the purpose of living? I so deeply regret it. With those words, Yuan Kuei's life quietly ebbed. While Chen Yang remained with his eyes closed, he suddenly heard the sound of the system. Abruptly opening his eyes, he faintly caught the burly man's voice, and then saw that the man had already expired. What did you just say? Chen Yang cupped his ear, but no answer came. A chilling silence prevailed. Xuanwu shell armor, when deployed, took the form of a turtle shell. Though its offensive power was modest, its defense was exceptionally robust, its coverage determined by the cultivator's strength, a utility that at this stage meant little for Chen Yang. Chen Yang, now awake, was momentarily taken aback. Had 500 years really passed? It felt as though it were only yesterday. Yet upon seeing a withered bone beside Yuan Kuei, he accepted this harsh truth. After much hesitation, Chen Yang decided not to venture out, for he rather enjoyed this secluded existence, a place to recline and escape the world. Even if true immortals were to appear, his solitary resilience would likely see him through. Tentatively, he extended his hand, and upon feeling that it could retract normally, he confidently tore away a storage pouch from Yuan Kuei's body. Inside the pouch were several spirit stones and gold coins, yet Chen Yang's gaze immediately fell upon a cultivation manual tucked into a corner. The manual bore a somewhat boastful name, Jiu Yang Divine Skill, but its title mattered little compared to its potential to set Chen Yang upon the path of Xiaoxian. Thus Chen Yang once again sat cross-legged, using the spirit stones from the pouch to enter a deep slumber. After an indeterminate span, a sudden trembling swept across the heavens and earth. The entire immortal palace began to stir, while the luminous curtain overhead flickered and ultimately vanished. Cursing as he awoke from his slumber, Chen Yang discovered before him an unfathomable chasm, while behind him, the immortal palace slowly began its descent into the earth. Damn! Chen Yang bellowed as he leaped upward, hastily fleeing from the scene. In the next moment, a crack appeared where he drew a deep breath and found a safe spot, watching as the immortal palace slowly sank and ultimately vanished without a trace. Its disappearance eradicated every vestige of his past, leaving only a yawning abyss on the land. Sighing deeply, Chen Yang stood with his arms behind his back, his eyes betraying a hint of reluctance. As what a fine turtle shell, it was now lost. Stepping forward, he resolved to leave this place behind. Unsure of where to go next, perhaps to roam the world as his home, or merely to find a place to slumber until 1,000 years passed. Life, after all, proved unbearably monotonous and tedious. After an unknown duration of walking, Chen Yang arrived before a city. The city gate was engraved with the words "Dominant City, Grand and Imposing." However, at the entrance gathered a group of cultivators in blue robes, continuously beckoning to passers-by. Seeing this, Chen Yang couldn't help but move closer to take a look. It turned out that a sect was recruiting disciples, but the passers-by clearly showed no interest and hurried along. Hey young brother, why not give it a try? Our Fuyo sect offers great benefits, including food and lodging. Every senior brother is talented, and every senior sister is as beautiful as a celestial being. Come give it a try. We from Beizhou do not deceive our own people. Chen Yang had not yet reacted when a long-haired man in a blue robe pulled him forward, pointing at a 7-colored stone and saying, "This is the spirit testing stone. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Red represents mediocre talent, while violet signifies extraordinary potential, resembling that of a celestial. However, no one has yet displayed the violet light. As long as you pass the simplest test, you can become a disciple of our Fuyo sect." Chen Yang initially had no intention of joining a sect, he just wanted to take it easy. However, after hearing the words of the blue-robed man, interest sparked in his eyes. He had cultivated in the immortal palace for several hundred years and was curious about his current level of cultivation. Then why not give it a try? Under the expectant gaze of the blue-robed man, Chen Yang placed his hand on the spirit testing stone. Instantly, the stone shone with brilliant light, dazzling to the point where one could barely keep their eyes open. As the light gradually faded, the blue-robed man craned his neck to look. It's red, the very lowest. Chen Yang also looked and saw a faint red light flickering on the spirit testing stone akin to a small match under sunlight. Those with poor eyesight could hardly see the glow. This was a bit awkward. Chen Yang shrugged and prepared to leave. He didn't care about talent. After all, he had plenty of time, much more valuable than mere talent. If there was a competition, it would be about who lived longer. However, after taking just a couple of steps, the blue-robed man called out to him again. Wait, young brother, congratulations, you passed. Chen Yang. Although it's red, it still signifies that you possess some aptitude for cultivation. Ordinary people might not even reach red, the blue-robed man said earnestly. At that moment, a passing yellow dog accidentally bumped into the spirit testing stone. Instantly, the stone shone once more, revealing a glaring orange-red color. The blue-robed man could no longer maintain his composure. The slap in the face came too swiftly. He glanced at Chen Yang, then at the spirit testing stone, finally managing an awkward smile. This thing must be broken. Chen Yang nonetheless followed the blue-robed man to the Fuyo sect, accompanied by a little junior sister who appeared to be only around 10 years old. It was said that during the test, the little junior sister's spirit testing stone emitted a dazzling blue light indicating excellent talent. She would surely become a pillar of the Fuyo sect in the future. Fuyo sect was a small sect located near Dominant City with only about 100 members throughout the entire sect. Therefore, on the first day Chen Yang arrived, he understood why his mediocre talent was not despised by the senior brother Chen Yang. Because this sect was simply too short on people. On the first day of joining, the senior brother taught him and the little junior sister about the cultivation methods, and it was the first time Chen Yang heard about the cultivation system of this world. The Qi refinement stage is the first gate to entry. Upon achieving Qi refinement, one's physique becomes extraordinary and lifespan increases accordingly. Following that are foundation, establishment, golden core, nascent, soul, God, transformation, void, refinement, integration, great ascension, and tribulation, transcendence. Each time one breaks through a barrier, both strength and lifespan can be correspondingly enhanced. After reaching the tribulation transcendence stage, one's lifespan can even reach 1,000 years, yet one ultimately cannot escape the fate of aging, illness, and death. Becoming an immortal is the only way to attain eternal life in this world. However, Chen Yang was an exception. After the senior brother finished explaining, the sky grew darker, and he left with a parting remark. The sect leader usually engages in quiet cultivation. I will guide you from now on. Saying this, he hurried off to the kitchen to start a fire and prepare a meal. Left behind were Chen Yang and the little junior sister exchanging glances. Hello, I am Linger. Chen Yang. The two introduced themselves, and from the little junior sister's words, Chen Yang learned that she was an orphan and her parents had died in the chaos of war, leaving her without support, so she had to come to the sect to earn her keep. Upon hearing this, Chen Yang found this little junior sister quite appealing. After all, laziness knows no age. In the days that followed, the little junior sister was assigned to practice alongside the senior brother, while Chen Yang took on various chores within the sect. Originally, cooking was a task everyone took turns doing, but once Chen Yang showcased his culinary skills, it became his sole responsibility. Occasionally, the other senior brothers would come to help Chen Yang, treating him as one of their own. Since there were so few people, they would patiently guide this little junior brother when they weren't cultivating. However, for reasons unknown, ever since breaking through the Qi refinement stage, Chen Yang had not made any progress. Over time, the senior brothers eventually gave up. With no immortal fate, perhaps it was better to provide the little junior brother with a stable life. In chaotic times, life is as fragile as grass. Perhaps that was the little junior brother's destiny. The little junior sister Linger could never settle down to cultivate. She often slipped away from the senior brother to come and play with Chen Yang. Unknowingly, their relationship grew increasingly close. Senior brother, why don't you cultivate? I don't want to, too lazy to cultivate, Chen Yang replied lazily. I've heard that cultivating to become an immortal allows for eternal life. I also want to live forever so I can watch others die. Linger said with wide eyes, her gaze filled with anticipation. They're all lying to you. Living forever is useless. It's better to enjoy life chopping, wood, feeding horses, washing clothes, cooking. Chen Yang mercilessly shattered Linger's fantasies. Oh, lies do not harm, but the truth is a sharp blade. Sure enough, after hearing this, Linger glared at Chen Yang angrily. Senior brother, you're the one lying. You've never experienced it. How would you know? After saying this, Linger turned and ran away. Chen Yang helplessly looked at Linger's retreating figure, sighed softly, and continued with the unfinished chores. 8 years swiftly passed. On this day, the sect leader who had never shown his face finally emerged from seclusion. The first thing he did upon leaving seclusion was to eat until he was unconscious, then glance at Chen Yang, who was cooking before stepping down the mountain. Not long after, the sect leader returned bearing serious injuries and dire news. The neighboring Qingyun sect had set its sights on the territory of the Fuyo sect. They paid a sum of money to the Yuan family in dominant city, who then supported the Qingyun sect, demanding that the sect leader hand over the territory. When the sect leader refused, he was enraged and retaliated with predictable outcomes. The Qingyun sect acted unscrupulously, teaming up with an elder from the Yuan family to severely injure the before closing himself off for healing. The sect leader called all the disciples before him aside deeply and solemnly instructed, "Everyone prepare to relocate tomorrow. A gentleman takes revenge. 10 years is not too late. One day when you have achieved something, we will definitely reclaim this territory." Senior brother Chen Yang's gaze was resolute. "Rest assured, master. I will take good care of the junior brothers and sisters." The Fuyo sect has relocated to a remote, deep mountain far from the boss city. Yet despite such concessions, the Qingyun sect still does not give up on suppressing the Fuyo sect. They feared that the Fuyo sect might one day rise again and cause losses to the Qingyun sect, so they sought to eliminate them at the root. From time to time, they would dispatch people to invade and disrupt, making the members of the Fuyo sect suffer incessantly, unable to even cultivate in peace. The senior brother could no longer endure this and took up his sword to resolve the issue. Before leaving, he said to his junior brothers and sisters, "I will return shortly." True to his word, within less than a quarter of an hour after stepping out, he returned covered in blood with only a breath of life remaining. Before his passing, he suddenly smiled and said, "I have not let down the words of my master." Then he tilted his head, closed his eyes, and the Fuyo sect began its feast. As the cook, Chen Yang felt that today's meal was the most unappetizing one he had ever prepared. Everyone ate as if chewing wax, tears involuntarily glistening in their eyes. Even Linger, who usually loved to eat and play, could not swallow a single bite. She clung to Chen Yang's arm, looking dejected as she said, "Senior brother, is cultivation just for fighting and killing?" Chen Yang thought for a moment and replied, "No, cultivation is to live better." Linger found this hard to understand. In the days that followed, she became lax in her cultivation, spending all her time by Chen Yang's side, seemingly fearful of everything around her. As time passed, the people of the Fuyo sect gradually grew accustomed to the disturbances from the Qingyun sect. Yet endless tolerance led only to further oppression. Seeing that the members of the Fuyo sect were easy to bully, the Qingyun sect became increasingly arrogant, and one day they stormed the sect. All the senior brothers and sisters rose in indignation, crossing their silver swords to form a solid wall around Chen Yang and Linger. "Little junior brother, take little junior sister and leave quickly. Little junior brother, live well. Little junior brother, take care of little junior sister. As long as there are people alive, the Fuyo sect will endure. As long as there are people alive, the Fuyo sect will endure." But ultimately people were lost. Chen Yang took Linger and fled, stopping at a small town. Linger seemed to have lost much of her spirit, growing melancholy day by day. Finally, in the third year after leaving the Fuyo sect, she said to Chen Yang, who was sitting cross-legged in meditation, "Senior brother, I don't want to cultivate anymore. It's too exhausting. I want to return to the mundane world and live a life without sect disputes, hatred, or worries." Chen Yang was momentarily taken aback, but soon came to terms with it. "Go ahead." Just as he had once told a little girl, even knowing that this journey might be one way, he could only wish her safety. "You? Aren't you coming with me?" Linger asked, her eyes flickering with a hint of expectation. She truly wanted to live for herself, but even more she wanted to live alongside Chen Yang. The years of companionship had made her accustomed to having him by her side. "I think not," Chen Yang replied as he stood up. He could not forget that day when his senior brothers and sisters formed a human wall with their own bodies and the echoes that still lingered in his ears. As long as there are people alive, the Fuyo sect will endure. But if he were to leave as well, the Fuyo sect would truly be left with no one. What meaning was there in living an unfinished life? Linger smiled lightly at Chen Yang's refusal. The next day, she set off alone, silently disappearing along the official road of the small town. Chen Yang stood at the forefront watching that solitary figure. Suddenly, it began to snow lightly, marking his first encounter with snow in this world. He reached out to catch a few flakes. They were icy, yet they brought a touch of reality to Chen Yang's heart. Having lived so long, he realized he had never felt the wind here, smelled the flowers, or seen the snow-capped mountains. The lake shimmered like frost at dawn, and the waves crashed against the snowy peaks. Chen Yang walked in the snow and returned to the original site of the Fuyo sect's relocation. Time had changed this place as well. Amidst the dilapidated houses, Chen Yang unearthed the still-injured sect leader. Sighing, he dusted off the sect leader's clothes, turned around, and set up a shrine, placing the sect leader upon it for offerings. Then he built a small wooden house here and crafted a plaque with the words Fuyo sect engraved upon it. At last, Chen Yang felt a sense of belonging in his heart. Thus the Fuyo sect managed to survive, and Chen Yang became its only disciple. 50 years passed and the small wooden house remained unchanged, though it bore the marks of time. The sect leader still showed no sign. Chen Yang himself had also broken through to the pinnacle of qi refinement, only one step away from foundation establishment. Yet that step could take 100 years or even 1,000 years. For Chen Yang, it was merely a matter of time. One day while in meditation, he suddenly heard footsteps outside the house. Thinking it was a passerby seeking a drink of water, Chen Yang stood up to welcome them. Outside the door stood a young man in his 20s looking about Chen Yang's age. Upon seeing Chen Yang for the first time, he was momentarily stunned, then asked with some confusion, "Are you the senior brother mentioned by my mother?" "It is I." Hearing the young man's words, Chen Yang instantly recalled that solitary figure from 50 years ago. Upon Chen Yang's acknowledgement, the young man's eyes turned red, and without hesitation, he knelt before Chen Yang. "Mother was right, you really are here, master uncle. Please go see my mother." As she. Her life had come to an end, and before she died, her greatest wish was to see Chen Yang once more. When Chen Yang arrived at a small village 200 miles away from Ba City, he happened to catch the last second of Linger's breath. Linger's face bore the marks of time, wrinkles gradually creeping up her cheeks. She was no longer the innocent little junior sister from over 50 years ago. Upon seeing Chen Yang, memories flickered in Linger's eyes, but those memories intertwined with reality, seeming somewhat out of place. Linger gazed at the unchanged man before her in disbelief, and finally said, "Senior brother, how come you haven't changed at all? At this rate, I will be your senior sister." With that, she closed her eyes heavily. Chen Yang's gaze was calm, but he noticed a horrifying sword wound on Linger's chest. Mother was attacked at the village entrance. That day, 2 disciples from the Qingyun sect happened to pass by. They mentioned the Fuyo sect, and for some reason my mother became exceedingly angry and fought them, ultimately resulting in her untimely death. The young man wiped his tears as he spoke to Chen Yang. Chen Yang listened quietly, and after the tale, he silently turned to leave. Once again, it was the Qingyun sect. This grudge was now firmly established. Chen Yang decided to visit the Qingyun sect today to demand an explanation, otherwise he could not swallow this anger. However, he heard that the sect leader of the Qingyun sect was a pinnacle foundation establishment cultivator, and tormenting him, a qi refinement cultivator, would be like child's play. Yet Chen Yang did not hesitate and resolutely set foot on the mountain gate of the Qingyun sect. "Today I stand for the Fuyao sect and demand an accounting." Chen Yang stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression composed and calm. 50 years ago, you grievously wounded our sect master, seized our lands, and slaughtered hundreds of our senior brothers and sisters. This year, my only junior sister was poisoned by the Qingyun sect. You will all answer with your lives." The disciples of Qingyun sect exchanged glances, then burst into derisive laughter. "You, at the peak of qi refinement, demand a reckoning," they jeered. "Please, you're no more than an old hen on a branch. Who do you think you are? Ask around in Baking. Apart from the Yuan family, we Qingyun sect mete out justice." Unmoved by their mockery, Chen Yang maintained his composure. Slowly, he produced a quilt from behind him and laid it upon the ground. "Bullies preying on the honest are you." He simply lay down, pulled the small quilt over himself, and invoked the Xuanwu backplate and the ancient technique of the 1,000-year dream. In an instant, a translucent tortoiseshell barrier enveloped him, and Chen Yang slipped into slumber. "Time will tell," he seemed to say. The Qingyun disciples regarded the sight with bewilderment. What was this intention? Curious hands reached to touch the shell, and found it impossibly hard and movable. "Cowardly trick, huh?" one taunted. "If you have the courage, come out and duel. Oh, don't hide inside and keep silent." No matter how they shouted, Chen Yang gave no reply. A faint snore emanated from within the shell, a sound that felt like mockery to the assembly. "I'll shatter your shell, you tortoise," someone cried, lunging with a sword to break the barrier. The blade snapped, the attacker was thrown back. Chen Yang remained unscathed and merely with a faint motion turned over. Left with no other recourse, they summoned their sect master, who was secluded and attempting to break through to the Qingyun sect master was a man whose years loomed close to their limit. A cultivator of foundation establishment might live 200 years, he had already lived 180. If he could not ascend to the golden core, his life would end within 2 decades. Confronting Chen Yang's shell, he struck twice with tentative force. Not only did he fail to break it, he left himself gravely injured. His remaining years dwindled to but 10. "Rascal," he spat, "let him sleep, then we'll see how long he lasts. If he can sleep 10 years straight, I'll finish him when I emerge." With that, he cursed, hastily returned to seclusion. His time was short. Yet Chen Yang truly did sleep for 10 years. Unable to evict him, the Qingyun sect turned the place around Chen Yang into a storeroom and slowly forgot he existed. 10 years later, the sect master's attempt at the golden core failed, and he passed away. Mournful music rang through Qingyun sect, and lamentation filled the halls. Chen Yang was roused from his dream by the sound. Blinking, he found himself in a room coated with dust. To his surprise, over the decade, his cultivation had quietly advanced to foundation establishment. Recalling his memories before sleep and measuring his present strength, Chen Yang felt the hour had come. He took a silver sword at random from the clutter and pushed open the long-sealed door. While Chen Yun's disciples grieved the departed master, Chen Yang walked alone and composed into their midst. "Today I represent the Fuyao sect and demand an accounting," he announced. "Get out. Can't you see?" A senior brother of Chen Yun, bowl in hand, glared at Chen Yang. As the rightful heir, he naturally stepped forward first. Before he could complete his sentence, a long sword shot through the air and pierced his throat. The senior brother's eyes widened in astonishment, a mouthful of unfinished food still in his jaw. The crowd rose as one in alarm. In a single day, both the sect master and the senior brother had fallen, a double calamity. In moments, Chen Yang found himself surrounded by hundreds of Chen Yun disciples. "All of you strike with everything you have. Do not allow him to slip back into his turtle shell." Silver light erupted. Hundreds of swords converged upon Chen Yang. The scene recalled the human wall his senior brothers and sisters had formed more than 50 years before. "Today I restore the honor of the Fuyao sect," Chen Yang said, raising his sword with one hand. To him, those hundreds of Qi refinement disciples were but ants. They did not comprehend the might of foundation establishment. With a single stroke, he repelled the entire barrage. This sword reclaims the shame of Fuyao sect's lost lands. His second strike swept like an army's charge, forcing the crowd to retreat 3 paces, unable to withstand it. "This sword avenges my fallen senior brothers and sisters." With the third strike, dozens upon dozens lost their heads, not even able to utter a cry. "This sword avenges my little junior sister." Chen Yang sheathed his blade, lightly folded his hands behind his back, and stood there with the same impassive bearing he had shown 10 years before. At that instant, a concealed aura assaulted from behind. A disciple who had been in seclusion and had escaped detection now attempted a sneak strike. The Xuanwu backplate sprang to life. The sword's tip struck the shell with a ringing clang, and the attacker's blade shattered. Another stroke, and Chen Yang effortlessly pierced the 6th man behind him. After that day, the mountain gate of Chen Yun's sect bore once more the sign of the Fuyao sect. Chen Yang cleared the sect of corpses and dug a great pit to bury them. It was work he had done before and performed with practiced ease. As for the Chen Yun sect master, Chen Yang smashed open his coffin, hurled the body down the mountain, and left him to lie broken and unwhole. Afterwards, Chen Yang descended the mountain to fetch the sect master, and then returned to a life of quiet routine, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. Word of Chen Yun's sect's slaughter soon reached the Yuan family below. As the dominant house of Baching, such a calamity demanded a response. Before the Yuan family could act, a far greater upheaval swept the realm. A band of rebels, incensed at the court's rule, rose in arms. War spread across the human lands of Bachling was not spared. The head of the Yuan household was publicly hanged at the city gate. As a warning, the world descended into chaos. Chen Yang would sometimes stand atop the hill and watch the flames consuming the city, sighing. When would all this slaughter ever end? It was at this moment that the sect master awoke, having successfully broken through to the golden core. He beheld the long-missed halls of the sect, but sadly found that not a single one of the old comrades remained. Chen Yang set out a table of fine wine and dishes and spoke freely with the master about the events of those years. The master listened with a tinge of nostalgia and finally patted Chen Yang on the shoulder. "From this day forth you shall be my personal disciple." But news of the turmoil below soon reached the master. The next morning, he packed his belongings and set out to take up arms against the rebels. Before he left, Chen Yang asked in bewilderment, "They treated you so cruelly, and yet you repay hatred with virtue. What nonsense is this?" The master, eyes blazing and beard bristling, answered, "We cultivators must place righteousness above all. In these times of chaos with rebels rampant, how can I, a golden core cultivator, stand idly by? From now on, the Fuyao sect is entrusted to you." With that, he handed Chen Yang a wooden token that signified authority and left without looking back. Chen Yang watched the departing figure in silence. He laughed up at the sky and strode forth, thinking, "Are we born to be common weeds?" Just as Chen Yang thought, the sect leader was going out to confront the rebels and restore justice to the world. However, the sect leader returned on the 3rd day wearing a yellow headband and unexpectedly joining the rebel forces, loudly proclaiming, "The heavens have perished, the yellow sky shall rise, the year is the Jiazi, and the world will be auspicious." Chen Yang, following the principle of if you can't beat them, join them, the sect leader became one of the rebels, brainwashed. After having a meal, he hurriedly left again. Chen Yang was dumbfounded. How could it be like this? He preferred the sect leader's initially rebellious demeanor, but alas, people change, and no persuasion could sway him. It was in the 9th month after the sect leader's departure that the yellow turban rebels were ruthlessly eradicated by the court, and Chen Yang unsurprisingly received news of the sect leader's death. It was said that before his death, the sect leader remained unyielding, sternly rebuking the court for their inhumanity, treating the common folk as mere fodder. Though he died, countless others like him would willingly sacrifice themselves for the cause of humanity. Upon receiving the news of the death, Chen Yang felt no emotion, not even a hint of, "Never mind, he was a man." Though the court had eradicated the Yellow Turban rebels, it had also suffered greatly, causing various states to become militarized, hinting at a divide in the realm. On the surface, the human realm appeared calm, but beneath it storms were brewing. Chen Yang continued to live a mundane life, believing one should not forget their original intention, and when he said to lie flat, he lay flat. However, after living this way for too long, it became too bland. He quickly learned everything about the mountain, from how many eggs the hen laid today to how many ants passed by his door yesterday. Even occasionally, when a few stray dogs passed by, Chen Yang couldn't help but slap them a couple of times simply to add some excitement to his life. Finally, one day, Chen Yang packed up the sect's belongings overnight and ran away. He realized that if he didn't find someone to chat with soon, he would lose the ability to communicate with others. He ran to Ba City and returned to his old profession, opening a restaurant named Fu Yao Restaurant. The restaurant's business grew better and Chen Yang's living standards improved, but he also faced troubles. He noticed that fights would often break out in the restaurant. Due to the aftermath of war, Ba City's order had yet to be restored, and the city was extremely chaotic, resembling a lawless zone. Thus, it was common for people to start fighting for no reason while eating. Chen Yang wanted to be a peacemaker, but no one paid him any heed. That day, another fight broke out in the restaurant. Two groups were fighting fiercely, breaking many tables and chairs, and Chen Yang felt pain stop. That coffee table is made of precious Namu wood worth 10,000 gold coins. Watch out, that chair is made of 1,000-year-old agar wood, priceless. Are you trying to smash my rice bowl? In silence, one either dies or erupts. Chen Yang could no longer bear it, and finally took action. The fighters had their limbs disabled by Chen Yang and were thrown out of the restaurant. It was from that day on that the people of the city realized that the owner of this restaurant was actually a hidden cultivator. From then on, an unwritten rule was established in the city. No matter what crime you commit in Ba City or whom you offend, as long as you are willing to spend 10 gold coins at Fu Yao Restaurant, you can enjoy a day of peace. No one dared to violate this rule, but some outsiders, not understanding the customs, thought they could challenge Chen Yang. But without exception, they were all like mice provoking a cat, looking for trouble. Anyone who dared to cause trouble at Fu Yao Restaurant had their limbs disabled by Chen Yang and became disabled. Perhaps it was at this moment that the rules were set. Chen Yang unknowingly became the secret architect and controller of order in Ba City. Yet he was unaware of it, living a routine life from 9 to 5, differing only in that Chen Yang bought a large residence in a prime location of Ba City. This residence, along with its courtyard, spanned over 1,000 square meters, and Chen Yang was very satisfied with it. The only thing he found somewhat inconvenient was that at night getting up to urinate required a 7 to 8 minute walk, which almost made his bladder burst. Every day waking up in a luxurious house of over 1,000 square meters, what greeted him was a monotonous and unadorned life. Chen Yang felt that he could continue living this way for another 10,000 years. But life is unpredictable. You never know what will happen next. Walking down the street, Chen Yang suddenly heard screams around him. Looking up, he saw a fireball suddenly appear in the sky, heading straight for Ba City. What a fuss! Have the people here never seen a meteor? Chen Yang's face returned to calm. He pressed his hands together, standing like a monk in the street, intending to make a wish on the shooting star, while the surrounding crowd screamed, creating a stark contrast. I hope no one gets hurt. Chen Yang slowly lowered his hands, looked up again, and the more he looked, the more something felt off. What the hell? How can there be such a large meteor? Chen Yang looked at the fireball, which was half the size of a football field, and nearly jumped. With no time to dodge, he had no choice but to summon his Xuanwu shield. After Foundation establishment, his Xuanwu shield could cover several dozen miles, so, without hesitation, Chen Yang maximized his defense. Then he watched helplessly as the meteor fell into the city, exploding like a thunderclap, and a massive shockwave swept across Ba City in an instant. Countless people didn't even have time to scream before being engulfed by the flames. Fortunately, Chen Yang's Xuanwu shield was sturdy enough. Under its protection, many people still survived. The survivors secretly rejoiced, their respect for Chen Yang growing deeper. After the disaster came rebirth. The people in the city busied themselves with reconstruction, while the massive meteor lay quietly in the city with no one daring to approach it. They regarded it as a calamity. Anyone who touched it would suffer misfortune. But Chen Yang thought differently. From then on, he had one more thing to do: digging through the meteor. Life was already dull, so he might as well find some fun for himself. Day after day, year after year. Recently, many outsiders heard about the meteor and came to join the excitement, but upon arrival, they were astonished by the orderly scene. This did not resemble a city that had experienced disaster. Everywhere were newly built buildings, and the common folk were self-sufficient, living fulfilling lives. An outsider with a golden mark tattooed on his face frowned upon seeing this scene. He couldn't believe that such an orderly place existed in the world. So he set out to uncover the dark side hidden within this city, and not long after he indeed stumbled upon it. A sword cultivator, having purchased an unripe melon at a fruit stall, angrily confronted the stall owner, shouting, "I asked if this melon was ripe. You said it wasn't, yet you sold it to me. When I got home and opened it, it turned out to be an unripe melon. What do you have to say for that?" The watermelon stall owner was quite indignant, standing up with his hefty body trembling. "You're deliberately looking for trouble, right? How could I, running a fruit stall, sell you raw melons? Hey, you're still quibbling. If you have guts, come and clash with me," the sword cultivator said, drawing his long sword with a whoosh, and soon the two were facing off. The man with the golden seal on his face saw this and showed a relieved expression. This was what he wanted, and the two were about to engage in a serious fight, staging a street assault under the bright sun. However, the watermelon stall owner showed no fear. "If we're going to clash, let's go to the Fuyun restaurant." With that, the sword cultivator and the watermelon stall owner walked together towards the Fuyun restaurant. The man with the golden seal was puzzled. Was the Fuyun restaurant a place in this city specifically meant for resolving conflicts? Driven by curiosity, he followed them. Not far ahead, a simply decorated restaurant appeared. The sword cultivator and the watermelon stall owner stepped into the restaurant, yet the anticipated fight did not occur. Upon entering, they calmly sat down, treating each other like old friends who hadn't seen each other for years, and exchanged polite gestures. "Manager Chen, bring us a pot of hot tea." The sword cultivator spoke first. "I admit I raised my voice just now. Setting facts aside, you're actually quite likable." The watermelon stall owner also looked embarrassed. "I feel bad about selling you raw melons, if this is my fault. How about I pick 2 good melons for you later? I guarantee they're ripe." No, it's my problem. I startled you earlier," the sword cultivator said. "It's my fault." The two began to push the blame onto each other, displaying high manners, leaving the man with the golden seal nearby astonished. Before long, Chen Yang brought over a pot of tea. The sword cultivator then pulled Chen Yang aside and said, "How about this? In front of Manager Chen, let's resolve this matter as men, deciding right and wrong." "Sounds great," the watermelon stall owner said, pretending to place his hand beneath him as if to draw a weapon. As the judge, Chen Yang could only stand helplessly between them and slowly said, "Are you both ready? We'll determine the outcome without risking lives on my command. Rock, paper, scissors." With those words, the sword cultivator and the watermelon stall owner both revealed their hands, one with a fist and the other with scissors. The watermelon stall owner burst into laughter. "I won." The sword cultivator clasped his hands, accepting the outcome, and poured a cup of tea for the watermelon stall owner, raising his cup. "Drink this tea, and let's bury the hatchet." A conflict that could have led to bloodshed was effortlessly resolved. The man with the golden seal found this restaurant's owner to be quite extraordinary. He had lost interest in the meteorite and instead began to admire Chen Yang. In a chaotic world where lives are as cheap as grass, to maintain a pure heart in such times is truly. Just as he was about to chat with Chen Yang, he saw Chen Yang emerge from the restaurant carrying a pickaxe. Today marked the nth day he had been digging into the meteorite, but the results were meager, having only created a small pit. Chen Yang was determined not to give up and dedicated 2 hours almost every day to digging stones. The man with the golden seal curiously followed him. After a while, he realized he had lost track of Chen Yang. Helpless, he returned to the restaurant to wait. Meanwhile, Chen Yang had already been waiting inside the restaurant for quite some time. With a pot of tea and a rocking chair, he swayed back and forth, appearing to be asleep. "I've been waiting for you for a long time." "Waiting for me?" the man with the golden seal asked in confusion. "Of course you sneaked around all the way. Do you think I'm blind?" Chen Yang stood up and scolded. The man with the golden seal awkwardly chuckled and then explained the reason to They got to know each other, and Chen Yang learned from this man that his name was Song Jiang, originally from Huixian and Shanxing. Recently, he had joined the Yellow Turban Army's uprising because he was dissatisfied with the tyrannical rule of the current regime. However, not long into their venture, they were crushed by the court, and he received the golden seal on his face as a mark of being branded by the court. He could only descend to become a lower-class person, never able to engage in business or hold office in this life, relegated to menial labor, such as carrying dung. Yet Chen Yang did not look down on Song Jiang. Instead, he fixed his gaze on him with a strange expression. Song Jiang felt a chill run down his spine under Chen Yang's scrutiny. "Brother Chen, is it okay if I help you dig stones today?" Thus Song Jiang stayed in Ba City. When there was nothing to do, he helped out with miscellaneous tasks at the Fuyun restaurant. When free, he followed Chen Yang to dig for meteorites in the city, leading a relatively uneventful life. Looking at the towering meteorite, Song Jiang was very confused. "Brother Chen, what's the significance of doing this?" "Significance?" Chen Yang paused, stroking his chin as he replied, "There's no significance. I simply have nothing else to do, so I came." Song Jiang was speechless, yet he did not stop wielding the pickaxe in his hand. With his help, the progress of digging through the meteorite accelerated. If this were in another world, Chen Yang might even consider live streaming. Song Jiang was an ambitious man. Out to this day, he still hadn't forgotten his original intention. While digging stones, he often spoke to Chen Yang about matters that made no sense. He said, "Brother Chen, the court is unkind, treating the common people like cattle and sheep. One day, I will overthrow the court's rule and become a benevolent ruler." He continued, "Brother Chen, the rulers are brutal, leaving the common people in misery, the wealthy feasting, while the poor freeze on the streets. It's only right that a hero emerges in chaotic times." He asked, Brother Chen, would you be interested in joining my revolutionary army? Chen Yang looked at Song Jiang, who was enthusiastically painting a grand vision, feeling somewhat embarrassed, and silently rejected his good intentions. However, Song Jiang did not give up. He always believed that Chen Yang was a man of kindness, and if his army had Chen Yang's support, they would surely thrive in the future. But Chen Yang had no such thoughts. Caring for the world was for emperors. He simply wanted to farm diligently and live each day well. One day, while digging, Song Jiang suddenly felt he had touched something hard, and then a green jade pearl was unearthed from the meteorite. What is this? Song Jiang held the jade pearl, carefully examining it against the azure sky. Chen Yang leaned in for a closer look and abruptly felt an exceptionally pure and righteous energy emanating from the pearl, causing his heart to shudder. Why was there suddenly a surge of impulse to do good deeds? This impulse was suppressed, but Song Jiang, holding the jade pearl, froze for a while before regaining his composure, his gaze resolute. The heavenly star has descended. The world will finally find peace. I will take up the sword and deliver justice to the world. With that, Song Jiang left, taking the heavenly star unearthed from the meteorite. He was going to recruit soldiers and gather righteous men to prepare for the next uprising. Before leaving, he solemnly patted Chen Yang's shoulder, eyes filled with anticipation. Brother Chen, are you sure you want to join me in this grand plan? Chen Yang smiled and shook his head. Alone, I will do my best to keep my own integrity. Song Jiang understood, nodding heavily, taking the startup funds he borrowed from Chen Yang and riding off. In poverty, one maintains their integrity, and in wealth, one benefits the world. Song Jiang was a spiritually wealthy man. In these tranquil days, Chen Yang considered raising some small animals to keep him company and to pass the time. He raised a large yellow dog, but in the 9th year, he inadvertently worked the dog to death. Feeling a bit sad, but more so indifferent, as this was an outcome he had long anticipated, Chen Yang carried the dog's corpse outside the city, preparing to find a secluded spot to cremate it. As the flames grew stronger, an inexplicable scent reached Chen Yang's nostrils. His expression changed, and he took out some Sichuan pepper and cumin from his pocket. How fragrant! No one can escape this law, and Chen Yang was no exception. After the meal, he patted his belly, sat idly outside the city for a while, then tearfully buried the dog's bones on the spot. On the way back, a sudden meow broke the silence of the night. Chen Yang looked closely and saw a palm-sized tabby cat in the corner of the city gate. Since we have met, it must be fate. Come home with me. The tabby cat named Xiao Li then stayed by Chen Yang's side. With Xiao Li's addition, the business of the Fu Yao restaurant flourished, and life passed uneventfully for the next 10 years. Over the decades, Xiao Li grew from a palm-sized kitten to a fat cat the size of an abacus, nearing its twilight years. Chen Yang felt helpless about this. Perhaps this was the sorrow of an immortal. Ding. Congratulations, host, for surviving 1,000 years. You have received a system reward, The longevity book, as the name suggests, allows Chen Yang to write the names of those he wishes to grant longevity to along with the duration, and they will receive corresponding life extensions. Has it already been 1,000 years? Having lived so long, Chen Yang's sense of time had become indifferent. When he came back to his senses, he found himself staring blankly at the longevity book in his hands. The system did not specify a limit on longevity grants, but looking at the longevity book, which was only about 10 centimeters long, Chen Yang fell into deep thought. If he wrote 1,000 years or 10,000 years, the recipient would still die, so what was the point? After thinking for a long time, Chen Yang tentatively wrote Xiao Li's name in the longevity book. Then in the column for the longevity duration, he wrote down a pi. According to the formula for pi is an infinite non-repeating decimal, which means it is an irrational number. Unless the system can calculate pi, this number will never end. Does this imply that Xiao Li's lifespan will also be endless? At the moment he put pen to paper, the longevity book trembled, clearly caught in hesitation. After a long while, as if it had accepted Chen Yang's cleverness, it suddenly burst forth with a brilliant light, which then entered the body of Xiao Li, who was napping on the counter nearby. Chen Yang smiled. Indeed, mastering mathematics and physics makes one fearless in the world. Xiao Li was quite understanding. That afternoon, it brought a few mice to Chen Yang, placing them at his feet. Chen Yang patted Xiao Li's head and picked it up. Then he took a deep breath, savoring the moment of cat cuddling, which is always a delightful experience. However, when he looked down, he saw that Xiao Li was licking itself where it had just relieved itself, and after that it licked its entire fur clean. Chen Yang's face darkened with anger as he tossed Xiao Li aside and turned away in frustration. A new city lord had arrived in Ba City, exuding authority with a decree bestowed by the court. However, this new city lord was not there for the welfare of the people, but rather to profit from them. The citizens of Ba City were living comfortably, and with benefits to exploit, he had offered considerable bribes to secure his position as city lord. What he had given would naturally be extracted back with interest. Thus, as soon as he took office, he raised the taxes in Ba City to be collected 80 years in advance. Even Chen Yang's restaurant received a tax notification demanding payment for operating taxes for the past few decades, and the next 80 years totaling over 1 million gold coins. Chen Yang had not made such a large sum of money from running the restaurant, clearly indicating that the city lord was not genuinely interested in taxation, but had targeted him with malice. With the new official's arrival, Chen Yang, as the hidden power in Boss City, naturally became the target of this fire, for the newly appointed city lord could not allow someone like him to stand over him. Unable to contain his anger, Chen Yang took a chair from the small restaurant, stood on it, and shouted, "Aren't you just bullying honest people?" As the passing citizens saw Chen Yang's stance, they thought he was going to do something significant to intimidate the new city lord. Instead, Chen Yang put away the chair, turned around, and closed the restaurant to go home and sleep. Unable to pay the exorbitant taxes, it seemed reasonable not to open the restaurant anymore. However, the next day, a group of bandits burst into the city and directly smashed the Fu Yao restaurant. After the damage was done, the city lord hurriedly arrived with his men to drive off the bandits standing before the ruins and pretentiously proclaiming, "I am here for the people, and in Boss City, I will accomplish 3 things: eliminate bandits, build merit, and establish my career." The citizens were momentarily stunned, but their expressions quickly turned grim. Boss City had been peaceful for decades, and there had been no banditry at all. It was clear that this city lord colluded with the bandits to profit under the guise of eradicating them. Chen Yang blended into the crowd, his expression cool, but soon became indifferent. Later that night, the city lord was sound asleep in the newly built city lord's mansion, unaware that a figure had quietly sneaked in. Chen Yang, seeing the city lord who had acted so arrogantly during the day, could not contain his anger. He raised his hand and delivered 2 heavy blows, saying, "How can you sleep soundly after smashing my restaurant?" The city lord instantly woke up, clutching his burning face, and screamed in shock. In the next moment, a sharp sword was pressed against his neck, and Chen Yang coldly said, "I give you 2 choices, either leave the city on your own, or I will personally escort you out." Without hesitation, the city lord chose to leave on his own. Only then did Chen Yang sheath his sword and turn back to sleep. If it weren't for the city lord's excessive actions, he wouldn't have been wandering around at such a late hour. But early the next morning, the sound of clashing weapons echoed outside his mansion. Upon stepping outside, he discovered a group of bandits had surrounded his residence. "This is the one. Brothers, remember to catch him alive. Lord Huang wants him to live in such a way that he cannot take care of himself." At the bandit leader's command, all attacks were mercilessly directed at Chen Yang. Not even pretending to put on a show, they clearly thought they had him cornered. Chen Yang's gaze turned cold as he saw the bandit leader's large knife coming down towards him. He extended his 2 fingers and effortlessly caught the blade. With a gentle twist, there was a sharp sound of metal breaking. Chen Yang easily snapped the knife, ending the life of the bandit leader. With their leader dead, the remaining bandits became leaderless, making them much easier to deal with. When the city lord arrived with his men shouting slogans of bandit eradication, with eager haste, he found the bandits all decapitated. Chen Yang gave the city lord a greeting from afar. "You are late. I have already taken care of them for you." The city lord stood agape, but gritted his teeth and heaped praise upon Chen Yang. "Well done, you have slain them, and made a most significant contribution to my campaign to cleanse Boss City of brigands." The next day, Chen Yang's deeds spread through Boss City like wildfire. No one failed to hear of it, and many lauded his courageous act. In truth, Chen Yang's contention with the city lord had only just begun. The city lord departed suddenly, not because he had been driven off by Chen Yang, but under the pretense of petitioning his superiors for a bounty. In reality, he went back to recruit reinforcements in secret. One tranquil evening, a golden core stage cultivator arrived at Chen Yang's mansion. When he pushed open the gate, he found the house empty, as if no one had lived there for some time. Finding nothing, the city lord had no choice but to give up. Life continued, and with Chen Yang gone, the city lord's ugly nature was finally revealed. Taxes were doubled, and a host of petty levies were added. Even the eggs laid by the town's hens were taxed, and in an instant the city was filled with complaints and unbearable misery. Boss City, which had once prospered, fell from paradise into hell overnight. People began to remember Chen Yang and the goodness he had shown. With him around, everyone behaved, and taxes were not so burdensome. Under his presence, each person found a sense of belonging in the city. Alas, life affords few ifs. On an official road leaving the city, Chen Yang wandered aimlessly, cradling De Li in his arms. When Song Jiang had first spoken of the court, Chen Yang had felt nothing, and now in hindsight, he understood the choice their sect leader had made. Dust veiled the road ahead. Chen Yang halted, gazing into the misty distance, suddenly inclined to recite a line of verse. "The road ahead is long and has no ending, yet high and low I search with my will unbending. You fool, move aside." Before Chen Yang could finish, a troop of horsemen wearing yellow scarves appeared upon the road. At their head was Song Jiang, whom Chen Yang had not seen for many years. The troop halted, and Song Jiang recognized Chen Yang. "Brother Chen, long time no see, you still look so young. You are not bad yourself. The grand plan draws near to fruition." Chen Yang smiled as he looked at the men behind Song Jiang. "Brother Chen, would you care to join me in this great undertaking?" Chen Yang joined the Huangjin army and became one of the rebels. Their first campaign targeted Ba City. As the war fire kindled, and before battle truly began the newly appointed city lord threw open the gates and bowed to welcome them. His wizened face smiled like a craven chrysanthemum utterly without backbone. Yet when he looked up and met Chen Yang's calm gaze as Chen Yang rode forward, the smile instantly froze upon his features. With a swift motion, a head tumbled to the ground. The matter of the city lord was settled. Chen Yang carried the city lord's head and rode alone into Ba City. There was no slaughter, no plunder. Only Chen Yang standing alone atop the wall proclaiming, "Heaven is dead, the yellow heaven shall rise. The year is Jazif, the world shall be at peace. The court is heartless and treats the people like fodder. Today I, Chen Yang, don the yellow scarf and call Ba City's heroes to march on the capital to restore justice to the realm." A profound silence fell across the city. One could hear a pin drop. As Chen Yang's words faded, cultivators who had been shown favor by the Fuyao and stepped out from their homes. "We are willing to follow shopkeeper Chen." More and more townsfolk poured into the streets, gathering to shout in unison at the figure high above them. "We are willing to follow shopkeeper Chen." Those who had suffered under the city lord longed for the old days. Beyond rebellion, they had no other choice. For even if one city lord were removed, another would take his place and continue to exploit them. The best way to solve the problem was to remove the one who created it. That day, thousands of cultivators from Ba City and tens of thousands of able-bodied men joined the Huangjin army. Song Jiang was delighted. "Brother Chen, you have truly awakened. With you by our side, how could our cause fail?" Chen Yang smiled, but gave no clear answer. The army marched on, bound for the capital Luoyang. The court reacted swiftly. It had not expected the Huangjin uprising quelled for more than a decade to flare anew. Soon a force was assembled and placed astride the Huangjin army's path. But the Huangjin ranks were filled with those who had long been oppressed by the court. They were not a force a small army could withstand. The commander who first faced them went pale with fear and ordered his men to fall back. It was already too late. The Huangjin army struck like a keen blade into the enemy's heart. The court forces collapsed and fled in disarray. Chen Yang rode at the vanguard, wielding a red-to-seld spear whose tip pointed straight at the enemy leader. The commander was a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Sensing peril, he reacted swiftly, drawing his 3-foot steel blade with a clang to meet Chen Yang's incoming spear. The spear's tip flicked, parting clouds and mist. When a close-quarters blade meets a long weapon, the outcome is seldom in doubt. One spear pierced the throat. Chen Yang drew out his spear and scrubbed it clean. Amid the cacophony of battle, his presence felt almost otherworldly. A plaintive mew rose, and De Li appeared clad in armor and padding along with a feline gait toward Chen Yang. Its arrival seemed less martial than endearing. Even in bespoke armor, there was not a shred of heroic bearing. Chen Yang scooped De Li up and hurried back to safety. Before long, the court army was utterly routed, and the first battle was won. Song Jiang's eyes flickered with emotion, whether from excitement or something else. He spoke little, but that night, he drank his fill leaning on Chen Yang's shoulder. When the revelry subsided, the Huangjin army set out anew. Across Zhuzhou, smoke rose from the plains. 36 Tiangang descended from the heavens. With the Disha appearing, the world fell into chaos. From the ruins rose the Huangjin. At some point, a doggerel began to circulate among the people. No one knew its author, yet everyone felt the word. Even the heavens seemed to answer the verse. Meteor showers rained across Zhuzhou, and 35 shooting stars fell upon the lands of humankind. When Chen Yang learned of this, one meteor had just struck nearby, by misfortune crushing a passing traveler. From the deceased man's belongings, they discovered his name was Yin Qing, a man from the capital. He had merely been sent to run an errand for his master, and had not expected to be slain by a falling stone. Chen Yang understood in an instant that this man should have been the Tianxiao star incarnate, but for some accident. Thus the Tianxiao star embedded within the meteor fell into Chen Yang's hands. On the way to Luoyang, I encountered many interesting people. The fearsome black whirlwind Li Kuei wielded dual axes, yet he was a man of broad mind and great kindness. The flower monk Lu Huishan had thick eyebrows and big eyes, a rugged figure, and he loved to eat meat and drink. The leopard-headed Lin Chong was originally a training officer in the imperial army, but after his wife was coveted by the adopted son of the current chancellor and was framed, he fled and joined the Yellow Turban Army. A group of people filled with anger towards the court gathered together, and Chen Yang eagerly anticipated the great upheaval they would unleash. Ahead lies Jingyang Ridge. A scout just reported that a fierce tiger on the mountain has suddenly mutated into a tiger demon, which may hinder our army's advance. Song Jiang put down the map, stroking his long beard as he spoke. Li Kuei, a rough man, immediately brandished his axe upon hearing this. "A mere tiger demon is nothing. Let me show it who's boss with my twin demon axes." "No." Chen Yang, holding a large raccoon, intervened. "Brother Chen, do you really think a mere tiger demon could have any impact on our army?" Song Jiang was puzzled. "In any case, this matter will be dealt with by someone. For now, instruct the army to rest in place, and we shall await good news." Chen Yang said with a smile, then took the lead, riding off toward the distance. Although Song Jiang did not fully understand Chen Yang's intentions, he was not a reckless person. He did not ponder too much over Chen Yang's words, and soon commanded the army to advance, setting up camp at Jingyang Ridge. Jingyang Ridge was a great place renowned for its fine wine and flatbreads. As soon as Chen Yang entered the city, he felt the atmosphere here. A short, simply dressed dwarf grabbed him and said with a beaming smile, "Sir, you look weary from your travels, or would you like to have a couple of flatbreads to satisfy your hunger?" Chen Yang looked down at the dwarf, showing a knowing smile. "How many flatbreads do you have left today?" "About 200 or so. Business has been bad since the tiger demon appeared in the mountains. If it weren't for the need to earn money to buy cosmetics for my wife, I wouldn't be out here selling flatbreads at this hour." Wu Dalong spoke with a worried expression, but when he mentioned his wife, a sudden happiness appeared on his face. Chen Yang patted his shoulder. "In that case, I'll take them all. You should return home to see your wife soon." Upon hearing this, Wu Dalong was overjoyed and hurriedly thanked Chen Yang with a bow. After packing all the flatbreads for Chen Yang, he quickly ran home with his burden. Poor soul, Chen Yang thought, carrying the flatbreads as he turned and walked towards the Yellow Turban Army's encampment. However, not far into his walk, he saw a beautiful woman sneaking out from a building. After emerging, she cautiously looked around just in time to meet Chen Yang's curious gaze. Upon seeing Chen Yang, the beautiful woman's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. Then she charmingly covered her mouth and smiled, taking the initiative to greet Chen Yang. "Sir, I cannot thank you enough for your care of my husband." Chen Yang, holding the flatbreads, twitched his cheek, realizing this must be Pan Jinlian. Pan Jinlian gracefully approached Chen Yang and took the flatbreads from his hands. "Carrying so many things must be heavy for you. Let me help you." As she spoke, her slender fingers deliberately brushed against Chen Yang's hand. What a seductress! Chen Yang sighed inwardly but promptly stepped back. To his surprise, as he retreated, Pan Jinlian seemed to lose her balance and lunged towards him. With no thoughts of women in his heart, he naturally dodged her embrace by stepping back once more. Pan Jinlian fell to the ground, looking up at Chen Yang with a pitiful gaze, her eyes filled with yearning. "Do you not feel the slightest bit of pity for me, sir?" "Sister-in-law, please be a bit more reserved, I'm afraid," Chen Yang said, feeling embarrassed. "Pity? You're a woman who has countless suitors. I wouldn't even consider you for a dog." At this, Pan Jinlian smiled sadly. "That's true. I am a married woman. You're so handsome, I'm sure you wouldn't look at someone as lowly as me." Chen Yang. He ignored her and directly walked past Pan Jinlian, returning to the Yellow Turban Army's. Days passed, but Pan Jinlian seemed to have taken a liking to Chen Yang. She frequently came to their camp, bringing him fine wine and delicious dishes. Accompanying her was the smiling Wu Dalong. Ever since Chen Yang bought out all his flatbreads, he felt that Chen Yang was a trustworthy person. Naturally, he thought his wife's various attentions towards Chen Yang were well within reason. Chen Yang thought for a long time and realized there was still a key figure who had not appeared, so he asked about it. Pan Jinlian looked puzzled. "Shi Minqing. I haven't heard of anyone named Shi Minqing in town. Sir, why are you inquiring about him? If you don't mind, I could ask Wang Po." "No need, no need." Chen Yang quickly waved his hand to dismiss her. After sending Pan Jinlian away, he stood still for a long while. Finally, he slapped his thigh in despair, wanting to cry, but having no tears. "Oh no, it seems I have become Shi Minqing. Truly, what a dog's life, but seems the book did not say it this way. Could it be that all these years I've been reading a fake book?" For several consecutive days, Chen Yang deliberately avoided contact with Pan Jinlian, but fate is unpredictable. One day, while walking on the street, he was suddenly struck on the head by a bamboo pole falling from the sky. Looking up, he saw Pan Jinlian at the window, covering her mouth and laughing. "I slipped up for a moment. I hope you can forgive me, sir. Could you please come upstairs to return the bamboo pole to me?" Chen Yang was stunned. How could there be such a cliché situation? At this point, his identity as Shi Minqing was completely solidified. Seeing Chen Yang hesitate, Pan Jinlian took the initiative to come downstairs and invited him up. After preparing a cup of tea for Chen Yang, Pan Jinlian took the initiative to say, "Sir Dalong is not here today. Sir, your physique must be quite strong, unlike my Dalong, who is like a wilted eggplant. Actually, what I like most is you, sir." As she spoke, Pan Jinlian moved closer, wanting to help Chen Yang undress. What could Chen Yang do? He firmly refused Pan Jinlian and gave her a stern lecture before angrily leaving. In the following days, Pan Jinlian did not come to find him again. One day, a weary sword-bearing man rushed in from afar. Hearing about the tiger demon ahead, he immediately sat down on the ground without a word, getting drunk and then staggering up the mountain empty-handed. Song Jiang and the others watched him alone and couldn't help but feel worried. He's a man, all right, but he seems to lack brains. Going up the mountain to fight a tiger is akin to walking to his death. Should we go help him? No need, no need. A good person will have divine protection. Chen Yang still stopped a few of them. For several days, tiger roars had echoed repeatedly from the nearby mountain. Seeing this, Song Jiang and the others grew increasingly anxious. Could that fellow have perished up there? Impossible. If he were dead, the tiger demon wouldn't still be barking like a dog up there. Chen Yang lay leisurely inside his campaign, tint a wild grass stalk dangling lazily between his teeth. General Chen, a woman has arrived outside the camp and insists on seeing you. A yellow turban soldier suddenly announced at the tent's entrance. Upon hearing this, Chen Yang furrowed his brow. In this place, aside from Pan Jinlian, he could think of no other woman who might seek him out. With no choice, he stepped out to meet her. Outside the encampment, Pan Jinlian stood eagerly awaiting him. The moment she spotted Chen Yang, she rushed forward with graceful haste and murmured shyly, her beautiful eyes downcast, "My lord, my husband Wu Dalong is on the verge of death. Now at last we are free from all hindrance." Chen Yang froze, then instantly recoiled at a dreadful realization. "Watch your words. What do you mean, free from hindrance? I don't even know you. Did you poison your husband? My lord truly shares my heart. How I adore you even more. Damn it, step back. I'd rather not get splattered with blood." Instinctively, Chen Yang pushed Pan Jinlian away. She gazed at him crestfallen. "My lord, for your sake, I have gone so far. Yet still you refuse to accept me." "Accept you? Seriously, what on earth do you see in me that warrants this? My lord, have you ever heard of love?" Pan Jinlian gazed at him tenderly, her affection unmistakable. Chen Yang was utterly speechless. This was beyond absurd. Best to keep his distance from her far and fast. A day later, Wu Song returned drenched in blood, gripping the severed head of the tiger demon. He hung the beast's head atop Jingyang Ridge, then galloped home without pause. His sole purpose in returning was to visit his elder brother and sister-in-law. Slaying the tiger demon had been little more than an incidental act. Yet upon arriving, he learned of his brother's death. Enraged, Wu Song drew his snowflake-patterned Jie Dao sword, and Pan Jinlian fell, where she stood, blood spraying across the floor. Wu Song himself was immediately placed under warrant by the Jingyang Ridge magistrate's office. Fleeing into exile, he recalled the Yellow Turban encampment station beneath the ridge and charged straight downhill without hesitation. Chen Yang sat reclined in a rocking chair beneath the sun, stroking a cat, when suddenly a massive blade pressed coldly against his throat. "I demand to join the Yellow Turbans," Wu Song declared, fury blazing in his eyes. Startled, Chen Yang nearly leapt from his chair, convinced Wu Song had discovered Pan Jinlian's fate and come for vengeance. Only when he heard those words did he relax, then glared back incredulous. "What in the world do you mean by that?" "I demand to join the Yellow Turbans," Wu Song repeated, unwavering. "Very well," Chen Yang retorted. "Tell me, do you consider the Yellow Turbans righteous?" "And am I?" Wu Song held his blade's steady expression unreadable. "They are righteous. Then is this how righteousness is repaid? Is there no law left? No moral order?" Chen Yang stamped his foot and pointed skyward, voice trembling with indignation. Only then did Wu Song lower his weapon, a flicker of remorse softening his stern features. And thus Wu Song joined the Yellow Turban ranks. During this encampment, Lin Chong trained the troops with disciplined precision, elevating their overall caliber once more. They were now only half a month's march from Luoyang City, and imperial forces encountered along the way grew steadily more frequent. Ahead, another massive army blocked their path, an occurrence they had already faced over 10 times on this. Yet this time was different. A young man, astride a fiery red warhorse, stood alone at the center of the road, gripping a battle halberd with commanding poise. Behind him stretched an army of hundreds of thousands, silent, unified, and poised to obey his every command. His name is Lu Ying, a renowned imperial general who has led multiple campaigns beyond the frontier, defending humanity against both demonic and monstrous incursions. He has earned great merit for our race. The force behind him is the Shaojun cavalry, rumored to slaughter men and gods alike, forged in the crucible of unrelenting war. Song Jiang volunteered the explanation, knowing Chen Yang rarely followed external affairs, and thus required such context. Chen Yang hummed faintly, then asked, "So he's exceptionally brave then?" "Not merely brave, he's formidable. Facing him would cripple us, leaving us unable to advance a single step." As he spoke, Lu Ying suddenly bellowed from ahead, "Who dares challenge me?" At that cry, several fierce warriors among the Yellow Turbans could no longer contain themselves. Li Kuei surged forward first. "Damn it, I'll kill you myself." "Kuei Z, hold." Song Jiang instantly intercepted Li Kuei. Lu Ying's strength was overwhelming. Li Kuei, impulsive and single-minded, would charge to certain death. Frustrated, Li Kuei protested, "Brother, why won't you let me fight him?" "Remain calm." Song Jiang's face tightened with gravity as his gaze swept across the ranks behind him. "This enemy advances with terrifying speed. Whose hand will rise first for the vanguard battle?" "The monk Hua may fight." Lu Zhishan stepped forward first, bowing deeply. Then came Lin Chong, Wu Song, Guan Sheng, Qin Ming Dongping, and Hu Yanjua. All 5 tiger generals stood assembled. "If you falter, withdraw immediately," Song Jiang commanded. Then Lu Zhishan rolled up his sleeves and strode forward with thunderous resolve toward Lu Ying. Lu Ying, seeing a challenger, curled a sardonic smile, cold, magnetic, and utterly confident. "Defeat me and pass for Luoyang. Lose and die. You foul-mouthed pest. Your prattle grates worse than a crow's caw. Lu Zhishan theatrically dug at his ear, then launched a devastating fist. It cleaved the air with a sonic boom aimed straight for Lu Ying's face. Yet Lu Ying remained unruffled. With a swift flick of his halberd, he thrust its tip directly at Lu Zhishan's fist. A sharp, ringing impact echoed. The monk flesh and bone alone had deflected the lethal point. Closer inspection revealed a faint shimmering white aura clinging to Lu Zhishan's knuckles, like a speck, but this offered no true defense. Seeing his direct thrust rebuffed, Lu Ying instantly adapted, releasing his grip, spinning the halberd one-handed, until the legendary Fangtian Huaji spear whirled with blinding velocity. Within moments, he pierced Lu Zhishan's guard and sent him flying backward with contemptuous ease. Next, having unseated Lu Zhishan, Lu Ying sneered, clearly craving further combat. Then came Guan Sheng wielding his great saber, defeated in 2 moves, retreating silently to the front line. Lin Chong, the leopard-head general, lasted 3 exchanges before conceding defeat. Dong Ping twins pair master watched helplessly as both weapons were flung from his grasp, vanquished. The yellow turbans harbor no heroes, only cowards and fools, Lu Ying declared, having bested 4 warriors in succession, his face etched with the hollow pride of invincibility. The remaining warriors bristled. Wu Song and Hu Yinzhua clenched fists and swore to make Lu Ying flee in abject humiliation. In the end, Chen Yang sighed softly and stepped forward. Let me take this fight. Brother Chen, are you confident? Song Jiang inquired curiously. I am. Chen Yang replied resolutely. With that, Song Jiang felt reassured. That's good. But not too much. Just before stepping onto the stage, Chen Yang abruptly added another remark. Hearing this, Song Jiang nearly fell off his horse, wanting to stop Chen Yang, but it was too late. Seeing Chen Yang, Lu Ying furrowed his brows and called out, "May I have your name?" Chen Yang pondered for a moment, then replied coolly, "You are quite arrogant, and I do not appreciate it." Lu Ying laughed heartily, and then what? Chen Yang waved his hand dismissively. It's not interesting to trade blows. How about we change the method of competition? Lu Ying looked at Chen Yang perplexedly. If it's not a contest of strength, what's the point? One should not compare too much. If we are to compare, let's see who lives longer. How about we compete on who can sleep the longest? Who would compete with you over such childish matters? You dare to provoke me? Prepare to pay with your life. Lu Ying said angrily, stepping forward with his spear. At this moment, Chen Yang had already settled into a cross-legged position, staring intently at Lu Ying slowly, saying, "You don't have a choice." He then closed his eyes, and a semi-transparent protective shell resembling a turtle shell appeared before him, as if he had fallen asleep, ceasing to speak further. Lu Ying was infuriated by Chen Yang's actions, feeling insulted. He immediately thrust his spear at Chen Yang's turtle shell, but it did not budge at all. One thrust was ineffective, so he tried again. Countless spear shadows flickered, all attacks landing on the turtle shell. Unfortunately, they failed to shake Chen Yang in the slightest. Lu Ying had never suffered defeat in his life. How could he allow himself to be humiliated by Chen Yang? He was unwilling to accept this. I wonder how long your turtle shell can hold out. Lu Ying planted his spear firmly on the ground, his gaze intense. This defensive martial technique required a massive amount of spiritual energy to maintain. It seemed this young man intended to wear him down before striking. I won't fall for this trick. Lu Ying proudly thought to himself, having seen through Chen Yang's facade. Nearby, Song Jiang and his companions exchanged glances, observing Chen Yang's strange behavior. Li Kuei remarked, "What is General Chen doing?" Wu Song said, "I've never seen such a survival-based martial technique. It's somewhat impressive." Lin Chong added, "I didn't expect General Chen to have this side apart from being lazy and indulgent." At this moment, Song Jiang interrupted, "Everyone, let's hold on for a moment. Brother Chen must have his reasons for acting this way. We must remain vigilant, as the opponent might launch an attack at any moment, and be ready to respond." Chen Yang, now lost in slumber, had forgotten how long it had been since he had deliberately practiced his cultivation. Having lived too comfortably, he had nearly neglected his cultivation. Now, taking advantage of this opportunity, he could finally make some progress. He had been stuck at the foundation establishment stage for, he had forgotten how many years. Living too long is indeed not a good thing. I should reward myself less in the future, as my memory is failing. Chen Yang made a silent decision, unaware that several days had already passed in the outside world. Lu Ying, once full of confidence, had grown increasingly impatient. By the end, his eyes were red and bloodshot, glaring intensely at the turtle shell before him. "General, you should eat something. You haven't eaten in 10 days. A soldier respectfully approached Lu Ying with, "Get lost. Have you ever seen a golden core cultivator needing to eat? I want to drink his blood." Lu Ying shouted, pushing the soldier away, his eyes reddened. Chen Yang was now on his list of targets. "Have the army set up camp and report to the court that the situation is dire. Quickly send supplies. Let's see who can outlast whom." Before the soldier left, Lu Ying did not forget to give his orders. After finishing, he also sat cross-legged, leaning against his Fangtian Huaji, and closed his eyes. As time passed by, neither of the two perceived the passage of time. Chen Yang relaxed his mindset steadily, increasing his cultivation. From the mid-foundation establishment to the peak, he took 8 years. This speed was neither fast nor slow, especially given that his spirit stone readings displayed the lowest level of red. But none of this mattered to Chen Yang, as long as he was willing he could spend hundreds or even thousands of years on cultivation, or even tens of thousands. Time was merely a string of numbers to him. 2 years later, during these 10 years, Lu Ying would occasionally awaken, and each time he did, he would grab his Fantian Huaji and poke at Chen Yang repeatedly. Yet each attempt was futile. Chen Yang sighed in his sleep, assessing his current strength. He was just one step away from breaking through to the golden core. Now that you have the strength to flaunt, once I rise, I will surely bring you down. With this thought, Chen Yang focused again and continued his cultivation. The soldiers from both sides had grown accustomed to watching the two. Over the years, the first thing they did upon waking each day was to see if the two were fighting. Seeing no movement, they resumed their eating and drinking. Years passed again, marking the 18th year of the standoff. Many youths had matured into adulthood. Even the beard on Song Jiang's chin had grown a bit. He stroked his beard, glanced at the unchanged two side, and turned back into the military tent. One deep night, a sudden thunderous clash of weapons echoed from the central region between the two armies. Everyone rushed out to see that the two had somehow awakened and were fiercely engaged in battle midair. The aura emanating from Chen Yang was unexpectedly not weaker than Lu Ying's. Many spectators felt tears welling up. In our lifetime, they finally clashed. In midair, Chen Yang wielded his spear, fiercely facing off against Lu Ying, who was fuming with rage. You actually dared to sneak attack. How shameless. And then what? Chen Yang laughed heartily. At that moment, he successfully broke through to the golden core, and the first thing he did was to give Lu Ying a strike while he was asleep. Now it was his turn to say this phrase. How could he not feel relieved? Lu Ying's face was grim. After sensing Chen Yang's aura and checking his own injuries, he suddenly turned around. This grudge shall be avenged. Saying this, he swiftly retreated, and his army hastily got ready to march away. Song Jiang, however, did not foolishly pursue them. Never chase a desperate foe, he understood this. Besides, the opponent was a well-trained court army. After 18 years of sharpening a sword, this matter was finally resolved. Song Jiang was overjoyed, patting Chen Yang's shoulder and calling him a fierce general. The process of winning is not important. What matters is the result. On this day, Chen Yang received the title of General of the Black Tortoise. Although somewhat ambiguous, he was not overly fond of it. Nonetheless, it was a title earned through the respect of the soldiers. Without the obstruction of Lu Ying, the army advanced more smoothly. Wherever they passed, countless battles erupted. Although the Yellow Turban Army had a strong purpose, they adhered to their principles, refraining from burning, killing, and looting, instead doing many good deeds to help the poor, winning the support of the people. All of this, of course, was at the behest of Chen Yang, who, as the pinnacle of the Yellow Turban Army's combat strength, was also the trusted military strategist of Song Jiang. The war continued. Among the 13 states of the Han Court, the Yellow Turban Army had already captured 3 with minimal losses. During this period, various experiences further strengthened everyone's resolve to overthrow the court. The Battle of Yuzhou. Chen Yang and Song Jiang split their forces into 2, surrounding the city of Yuzhou from the front and back. The court threatened the families of the tens of thousands of soldiers inside the city, leaving them with no way out, forcing them to fight to the death. In this battle, the Yellow Turban Army emerged victorious. However, despite their success, no one could. In the Battle of Yangzhou, the court was well prepared, setting a trap to lure the Yellow Turban Army into the city, aiming to catch them in a net. Chen Yang decided to play along. Once inside the city, he immediately opened the canal dam and ordered the Yellow Turban Army to retreat to higher ground. Yangzhou was flooded and none of the court soldiers escaped. This battle also caused countless civilians to become displaced, leading Chen Yang to bear the weight of hundreds of thousands of lives lost, earning him the title of the cold-blooded strategist. But in battle, it was either you die or I die. Chen Yang could only do his best and leave the rest to fate. If he did not open the canal, all the soldiers of the Yellow Turban Army would surely be captured, and then how could they survive? Even so, more and more people continued to join the ranks of the Yellow Turban Army. As their numbers grew, Song Jiang felt that fighting as a lone army was too inefficient and proposed splitting into 3 groups to attack the cities, regrouping before reaching Luoyang to focus on the capital. Chen Yang initially wanted to refuse, but he could not resist Song Jiang's insistence, so he agreed. He took 20,000 troops and headed towards Liangzhou. Without the support of the main army, Chen Yang had to change his tactics and resort to guerrilla warfare. During one pursuit by the court, his follower, Hu Yanzhuo, was struck by an arrow and died. Before dying, Hu Yanzhuo grabbed Chen Yang's hand with his bloodied fingers, his gaze intense. General Chen, the Han court is incompetent, treating people like pigs, but I fear I won't see the day when the world is at peace, and I feel a bit unwilling. A prosperous age is coming. I will witness the world's prosperity for you. Chen Yang replied, holding Hu Yanzhuo's hand. I wish to become the star of divine might, illuminating the path for the Yellow Turban Army. Hu Yinzhua closed his eyes heavily. A green light shot from his body, soaring into the sky. Like a flare illuminating the dark night, it brightened the surroundings as the green light shone upon every member of the Yellow Turban Army. In that moment, their military might was vividly displayed, deeply moving everyone. Chen Yang remained silent, slowly releasing his hand, his gaze gradually sharpening as he turned to mount his horse. Are the soldiers ready? As long as the court stands, we shall endure. Are the spears still there? They are still here. Nearly 2,000 long spears were raised, emitting a chilling light in the night, as if they could pierce through the sky. Draw your spears and mount your horses, and follow me straight to Liangzhou. That night, Chen Yang's troops hardly slept, for as soon as they closed their eyes, they were met with the sounds of fierce battles. The general defending Liangzhou clearly did not expect the Yellow Turban Army to dare to attack again, hastily rallying his troops to confront them. However, the morale of the soldiers who had just been awakened from sleep was evidently insufficient. Despite the war drums echoing through the air, Liangzhou was still captured by Chen Yang with a thunderous strategy. The cavalry squad that had chased them and caused Hu Yinzhua's death was ordered to be executed on the spot for refusing to surrender. The morale of Chen Yang's main force reached its peak, and the subsequent cities were captured without much effort. For several days, Chen Yang received letters from the other two divisions. Guanxing with his broadsword displayed great valor. The heavenly brave star charged fearlessly into battle, achieving remarkable feats, but was struck down by a stone-throwing device from Yuzhou, dying beneath his horse. Double-gun Dong Ping single-handedly held the pass, leading his troops deep into enemy territory, taking enemy heads as if picking fruit, but he fell into an ambush and was trapped behind enemy lines, dying in the melee. It was said that he was struck by numerous arrows before he fell, yet still fought back, slaying over 40 enemies. Thunder Fire Qin Ming wielded his wolf-tooth club with extraordinary skill, yet during the battle he dodged a hidden weapon and was killed by an enemy with a spear. Chen Yang had always thought that living was meaningless. The lifespan of an ordinary person seemed extremely short to him. However, accomplishing something significant in a limited lifetime could perhaps be the true essence of life. He approached the fire pit set up outside the military tent and gently placed the letter into the flames. As smoke rose, he commemorated the soldiers who died in battle in this way, while also honoring all those who perished due to war. Soon among the 13 states of the Han Court, a total of 105 counties were completely consumed by the Yellow Turban Army, and the army's journey was nearing Luoyang. Chen Yang stood on a hill, the distant prosperous city of Luoyang, already faintly visible. Capturing this city would signify a victorious campaign, bringing a temporary peace to the world. He was the first to arrive at the meeting point, while the other two divisions led by Song Jiang and Li Kuei were still on. Chen Yang was not in a rush, for although the Han Court was now at the end of its tether, it still had considerable resistance. Like a grasshopper, in autumn, it could still leap high. Looking at the trend chart on the map, Chen Yang devised a battle plan for the decisive battle overnight, waiting for the other two divisions to arrive before commencing the final confrontation. However, plans often change unexpectedly. The next day, Chen Yang's main force was surrounded. Lu Ying had recovered from his injuries, wielding the Fantian painting halberd, leading 1,000,000-strong troops surrounding Chen Yang's main base tightly. Lu Ying stood at the forefront of the ranks, his lips twisted in a sneer, unchanged. The grudge from that one shot back then will be repaid 100-fold today. Chen Yang glanced at him and waved his hand, saying, "You really are pathetic. Back then you didn't even have the courage to confront me, yet now you dare to boast. A dragon does not chant, a tiger does not roar. How laughable is the mere Yellow Turban. If it weren't for your lack of martial ethics and the ambush back, then would I have been afraid? Now I lead 1,000,000-strong troops while you only have a mere 200,000 soldiers. Let me see how you intend to fight this battle. Oh, are you very skilled at fighting? What good is your skill? In battle, it's about tactics, strategies, and endurance. What can 1,000,000 soldiers do? Don't be too vain. If you're brave, why not compare who lives longer?" When Lu Ying heard Chen Yang mention comparing lifespans, his expression immediately fell, reminding him of some unpleasant memories. He did not waste words. In his eyes, Chen Yang's force was already a fish in a barrel, ready for slaughter. He immediately ordered, "The elite cavalry will charge and kill the enemy, while the others will encircle and tighten the siege, leaving no survivors. Kill." In an instant, the court's army surged from all directions towards Chen Yang. Chen Yang's expression was grave. He had calculated the surrounding terrain the night before and naturally had a plan to counter it. But at that moment, the lives of over 20,000 soldiers depended on his every thought. A single wrong strategy could lead to the annihilation of the entire army. However, in warfare, victory and defeat are commonplace. How could one hesitate to act out of fear of being? The place where the main force is located is surrounded by mountains on all sides, with only one road for ingress and egress. Therefore, Chen Yang commanded the army to form a triangle and break through towards the exit without hesitation. 200,000 soldiers against 1,000,000. Don't be ridiculous. Such things are only heard in stories. If it came to real combat, Even Chen Yang wouldn't dare to exaggerate. Everyone huddled together and soon encountered the chase of the cavalry, but at such moments it is often when they cannot scatter. Even ants know to group together and flee from a fire to minimize losses. Chen Yang isn't foolish. He had read the 4 great classics in his past life, and at such times huddling together is the only way to reduce losses. In front is the mountain pass. Everyone withdraw immediately, leaving the cavalry to me to hold off the enemy and buy time for the army. As Chen Yang rushed to the front and saw the mountain pass, he suddenly turned his spear around and took the initiative to fall to the back of the formation. He held his spear in one hand, exuding an imposing aura. The cavalry who heard his command quickly rode up. Behind him was the dark mass of the imperial army with Lu Ying's fierce countenance pursuing them bloodily. Brothers, in front are 1,000,000 enemy soldiers. Are you afraid? In this atmosphere of slaughter, Chen Yang instead felt relaxed and asked, "Afraid? If I were afraid, I wouldn't have joined the Yellow Turban Army in the first place. Following General Chen, there is nothing to fear. In such a scene, even if I die, there will be no regrets." The cavalry shouted in unison. "Good." A faint smile appeared at the corner of Chen Yang's mouth. "Who says there are no clothes? I share the same armor with you. There will be casualties, but ignore them. Even if it's me, do not stop your steps. Behind us are the common people, blooming flowers. Even if we die, we must buy time for our brothers to escape. Fight to the death." Thousands of cavalry shouted loudly. In the blink of an eye, the imperial army had arrived, enemies all around, and Chen Yang was the first to raise his spear against Lu Ying, who rode the red hare. In just one encounter, the momentum of the Golden Core was fully revealed as their spear tips clashed, sparking fierce sparks. "My Fong Tianhua halberd is granted by the Emperor, forged from heavenly black iron. Do you dare to challenge me with your mere iron weapon?" Chen Yang shook his long spear and chuckled softly. "It's just an external object as long as it can kill it." Another round of clashes commenced as Lu Ying's warhorse circled around Chen Yang like a gust of wind. "My red hare is a rare steed, swift as the wind, agile as a rabbit. How can your broken horse keep up with me?" Chen Yang stomped his horse and halted in place. "The horse may not be excellent, but as long as it can run, it is sufficient. You are grasping at straws. Let's see how long you can hold on." Lu Ying wielded his spear, constantly searching for Chen Yang's weak spot from various angles. Before long, he added, "My armor is crafted by the human race's master blacksmith, impervious to arrows and fire, indestructible. What do you have to play with me? But your armor is not as good-looking as mine." Chen Yang flicked his cape, a carefree aura bursting forth as he faced Lu Ying once more. The battle between the two was beyond what ordinary people could compare, leaving an empty space around them to unleash their martial prowess. While battling, Chen Yang also had to keep an eye on the army's retreat progress. Seeing that it was only halfway through, he couldn't help but feel a slight heaviness in his heart. He must buy time for the army's retreat. Once they break out of the encirclement, their safety would increase significantly, and he was confident he could hold out until the other 2 forces arrived. Looking over at the cavalry, due to the terrain, there weren't many forces to encircle them, leaving only the cavalry to engage. Even so, the combat power of the cavalry still firmly suppressed Chen Yang's side, forcing them to resist tenaciously. In this critical moment, no one retreated. All cavalry held the exit, fighting with their lives. "Who says there are no clothes? I share the same armor with you. Rising with the royal army, I sharpen my halberd." In the midst of close combat, all the yellow turban soldiers retreating ahead suddenly felt an impulse not to leave upon witnessing such a scene. They wished to stay and fight to the death. However, thinking of the time bought with their lives by General Chen and the others, they steeled their hearts and quickened. Today, the heroic act of thousands of cavalry holding off the imperial cavalry will surely be recorded. Soon, when Chen Yang, who was entangled with Lu Ying, noticed the last yellow turban soldier had withdrawn from the encircled mountains, he suddenly burst into laughter amidst the fight. Lu Ying was perplexed. His life was nearly gone. What was there to laugh about? But at that moment, Chen Yang shouted to the sky, "Remaining men, heed my command, light the fire." Instantly, all the surviving cavalry pulled out fire starters from their waists. Ignoring the pursuit of the cavalry, they threw the sparks into all directions with all their might. However, with this throw, they also cast away their own lives. Many yellow turban cavalry, distracted while throwing, were pierced by the imperial cavalry's spears, blood spilling on the spot, but their eyes were filled with contentment, without a trace of regret. Lu Ying's pupils constricted upon seeing this, staring at Chen Yang in shock. "Are you not afraid of death?" Chen Yang smiled lightly. "Now you should worry about yourself." As he spoke, fires had already ignited all around, trapping the cavalry and many of the imperial soldiers within. To achieve all this, Chen Yang's cost was only one cavalryman. Who was the victor and who was the vanquished? It is clear at a glance. Lu Ying panicked, completely panicked. He did not expect that Chen Yang was a madman who would not even care for his own life. Did he not know that by doing so he could not even protect his own life? But Lu Ying had no time to think too much. Once this great fire ignited and spread through the mountains, the imperial army trapped within would suffer heavy losses. Most importantly, the fire had now spread into the ranks, turning much of their provisions to ashes. If this continues, he could only fight to the death. This was the last strength of the imperial court, including 400,000 of the emperor's elite troops, the true foundation of the court. If this battle could not be won, death awaited Lu Ying. He originally intended to rely on this army to engage the Yellow Turbans in a war of attrition, but now Chen Yang forced him to speed up the battle. Lu Ying's expression darkened, almost dripping with water. His hand gripping the Feng Tianhua halberd trembled slightly, a sense of fear welling up. Immediately he disregarded Chen Yang and leaped into the air, urgently commanding the army. Everyone gather at the mountain pass, escape the fire, do not carry any provisions, and go lightly into battle. As soon as his words fell, he heard the sound of something cutting through the air. Looking down, Chen Yang had already caught up, standing across from him. You really don't take me seriously. Don't forget that your opponent is me. Lu Ying had no choice but to engage with Chen Yang again, but this time their roles were reversed. Chen Yang was no longer the one at a disadvantage, and now he could fully focus on dealing with Lu Ying. Meanwhile, Lu Ying had to constantly divide his attention to observe the army's movements. In this fire, if he was careless, the entire army could be wiped out, and he couldn't afford to gamble. When Lu Ying gave the order, the imperial soldiers surged headlong toward the exit. However, the Huangjin army waiting beyond the encirclement had long been prepared. One by one they reversed their spear points, their gazes fierce as predators lying in ambush at the exit. Thousands of cavalry will not have died for nothing alongside General Chen. For every man who emerges, strike him down. They had intentionally dampened the flames at the exit to create the illusion of an easy escape. Little did the fleeing know it was the very path to doom. The change in status did nothing to cheer the Huangjin soldiers, for they knew this situation had been bought with the lives of General Chen and thousands of cavalrymen. This state of affairs endured for 3 days. The great fire consumed the forest, yet showed no sign of abating, spreading ever outward. The Huangjin troops held fast beyond the blaze. Although some imperial soldiers escaped, many were cut down. When counted, over 100,000 imperial troops had fallen to the Huangjin spears within 3 days. Compared with 1 million, it was only a tenth, yet one must not forget that the Huangjin army achieved this as a reversal against the odds. Within the inferno remained roughly 800,000 imperial soldiers. They had been cut off from provisions for 3 days and were utterly exhausted, yet Lu Ying, as commander, still harbored a slender hope. After all, his side still had the numbers. He had not yet been defeated. But on the 5th day, the clash of arms and thunder of cavalry suddenly rose beyond the blaze. The accumulated clanging of weapons made Lu Ying's scalp tingle. Chen Yang's reinforcements had arrived, and in that moment his heart finally sank. Seeing Chen Yang opposite him, smiling and outwardly serene, Lu Ying's eyes filled with desolation and world-weariness. In an instant, he seemed decades older, having lost all hope of life. After a fierce moral struggle in his mind, Lu Ying clenched his teeth. He slammed his Fengtian halberd into the ground, then lunged forward. The cold, gleaming point pierced his chest. Blood gushed forth. Lu Ying's bloodshot eyes turned to Chen Yang, full of unwillingness and bewilderment. He had fought countless battles, repelled demonic incursions beyond the borders, and earned glorious merit for the people, yet he never imagined he would be defeated like this. Chen Yang did not answer. He lowered his long spear and flung it into the flames, an instrument he would no longer need, and said, "Born in the wrong time, our positions simply differ. Remember, I, Lu Ying, took my own life by my blade. I did not die at any man's hand," he said stubbornly. Chen Yang gave no reply, but turned to survey the flames which raged ever fiercer. Even those of the Golden Core stage could only hover briefly and could not fly. Escape was thus impossible for them as well. Yet Chen Yang did not panic. He sat cross-legged beside Lu Ying and closed his eyes. Chuanwu carapace. Outside the blaze, Song Jiang and the others, seeing the Huangjin soldiers standing guard and the roaring mountain fire, could not help asking Chen Yang's subordinate, "Where is General Chen?" That question shattered the last stubbornness in their hearts. Many of Chen Yang's men covered their faces and wept as they recounted the course of events. Upon hearing this, Song Jiang's heart lurched, and the hand that gripped his sword trembled. 2 clear tears ran from his eyes. "Brother Chen, it was I who brought this upon you." Wu Song and the others were equally shocked by Chen Yang's deed and deeply moved. General Chen lived with calm dignity like a gentleman, but in the crucial moment, he proved himself a true man. "General Chen, this peace will soon be as you wished." Having steadied himself, Song Jiang waved his hand and issued orders across the ranks. "Soldiers, surround the burnt ground. In this battle, we accept no surrender. With the imperial blood, we shall honor our fallen comrades." With that cry, the Huangjin army became like a coiled dragon, securing every corner of the blaze and permitting no one to escape. If the fire burned for a month, then the Huangjin army slaughtered beyond it for a month as well. Only when the flames gradually abated did the scene reveal utter devastation. The land, charred black, the blood of the slain baked into dark brown crusts sinking 3 feet into the soil. Yet the heaped mountains of stark, white bones testified that it had truly occurred. After the great battle, there were no victory feasts and no shouts of triumph. All were subdued as they cleared the field. Song Jiang instructed his cooks to prepare a fine spread and set 2 jars of good wine gently at the center of the battlefield. He first poured a bowl of wine and quietly sprinkled it upon the ground. "Brother Chen, when we first met, we were like old friends. I knew you were a man of benevolence. I invited you to join in opposing the court and never imagined that my move would cost you your life. That was my fault. We were on the verge of success. I planned to have you become chancellor so you could see the world's splendors. And now, if these achievements are to be shared by no one, then what has my striving been for?" Song Jiang collapsed to the ground and murmured to himself, "Brother Chen, if you can hear me, I have prepared fine wine and food. Let us drink once more before I lay you to rest." As he spoke, Song Jiang could not help but recall Chen Yang in life. Without grand ambition, running a modest inn and finding joy in quarrying stone, and he covered his face and wept out loud. At that moment, a soft rustling sounded before him. A disheveled man in battle robes, dust-cloaked, flopped onto the table, seized the food and wine, and began to eat with utter abandon. While eating, he muttered, "Why is it that every time I wake there is a feast? How curious! Whose table am I?" Song Jiang looked up frowning at the ragged man and demanded, "Who are you? Do you know for whom this food and wine?" The man mouthed, full looked baffled. "Song Jiang, you up in the dead of night, keeping all the food to yourself?" By the dim light, Song Jiang found the man vaguely familiar. On closer inspection, he staggered backward in shock. "Chen, Brother Chen, are you a man or a ghost?" Chen Yang puzzled, then relaxed, and chuckled. "Which do I look like to you, a man or a ghost?" Song Jiang was utterly dumbstruck, stammering, without finding words. Chen Yang burst into a hearty laugh, breaking the silence. "Of course I'm human. Do I look like a 1 meter 40 blonde, bijed, beast-eared waif?" Song Jiang did not understand the phrase beast-eared waif, but felt awkward and reproving. "Brother Chen, you do look." He recalled the battle years earlier between Chen Yang and Lu Yingchen's peerless tortoiseshell martial art and his lazy sleeping ways. He ought to have remembered that Chen had such means of survival. He sprang up and landed a heavy punch on Chen Yang, his face brightening with excitement as he pointed to the food. "This was meant to honor you. It's unlucky to eat it. Instead, well, hold a grand victory feast. Today, everyone shall drink their fill." Chen Yang was momentarily stunned, staring at Song Jiang with sly amusement. So after all, this was him eating his own memorial meal. Song Jiang forced an awkward smile, then led Chen Yang toward the army's encampment. The joy of recovering what was lost pleased him more than even the victory of battle. The once gloomy encampment quickly became lively with the arrival of Chen Yang. Each person was filled with joy, raising their glasses and toasting to him at the celebration banquet. Even some of the soldiers under Chen Yang's command laid aside their respect for General Chen, linking arms with him as they drank and made merry. Not for any other reason, but because of this battle. Chen Yang's contributions were undeniable. The celebration continued until noon the next day, with the sun high in the sky. Among the charred trees lay several drunken men sprawled in disarray. If anyone were to pass by, they might mistake them for the corpses left behind after a fierce battle. However, the battle had already come to an end, and everyone had let down their guard. Soon an era of peace would arrive. In the afternoon, Song Jiang was organizing the troops on horseback. The goal of this journey was the capital, and to prevent the Han court from fleeing overnight, a swift resolution was. As they were about to depart, Chen Yang, groggy from drunkenness, suddenly caught a whiff of a damp, decaying odor. Assuming it was life returning after the forest fire, he thought little of it. Soon the 8th Yellow Turban Army was advancing towards the capital, Luoyang. A grand procession stood beneath the city wall with the sound of gongs and drums resounding from within the city. Firecrackers echoed, and all the citizens of the capital lined the streets to greet them, with no sign of confrontation from the Imperial Guard. Clearly, all of this was under Chen Yang's control. The Yellow Turban Army originally boasted a force of 1 million, yet only 800 had arrived at the capital, the implications of which were self-evident. As the city gates swung open, Chen Yang rode alongside Song Jiang and others at the front of the procession, entering the city. The faces of the citizens within were filled with excitement, and some of the older folks had tears in their eyes. Having been oppressed by the Han court for their entire lives, they never expected to see a turning point in their fortunes. "I have long heard that the Yellow Turban Army is a righteous force, and that their leader Song Jiang is concerned for the common folk, taking the great harmony of the world as his duty. To see him in person is a lifetime fulfillment for me. The Yellow Turban Army has traveled a long way. Oh, please speak honestly about any misdeeds that have harmed us. Robbing the rich to aid the poor, resisting the court, and slaying corrupt officials. The Yellow Turban Army is a force of justice. The Yellow Turban Army has arrived, bringing with them clear skies. The Yellow Turban Army had come, bringing peace to the land. Wherever Song Jiang and the others when they were met with unabashed praise. However, as the citizens' gaze shifted to Chen Yang, their expressions changed to one of displeasure. They had long heard of this General Xuan Wu and the cold-blooded strategist. In the battle after Jingyang Ridge, he had launched a surprise attack, while Lu Ying was unprepared. The flood that submerged Yangzhou City resulted in the deaths of countless innocent civilians. In the decisive battle in Luoyang, he set fire to the mountains, the flames raging for over half a month, causing untold suffering and even forcing the human general Lu Ying to take his own life. Although Lu Ying was a fierce general of the court, he was a man of integrity who simply chose the wrong side. His contributions to humanity could not be erased, so the people naturally did not wish for his death. Yet Chen Yang, this cold-blooded man, had cruelly driven this hero to his death. If Song Jiang was seen as an angel in their hearts, Chen Yang was the embodiment of a naked devil, brutal, bloodthirsty, and heartless. In short, all the negative words were unreservedly attributed to Chen Yang. Sitting on his horse, Chen Yang naturally felt the weight of their gazes, but he did not care. If one were to be overly concerned with the opinions of the world, life would be too burdensome. He slowly lifted his head, his gaze placed upon the vast city of Luoyang. It was already late autumn, yet some red flowers had not yet withered. As the wind blew, the petals gently fell, carpeting the entire street like a grand red carpet arranged by the heavens. With the victory in battle, his heart was free of distractions. Reflecting back, the reason he joined the Yellow Turban Army was due to a small city lord. In hindsight, it was quite. With the spring breeze and high spirits, he could see all the flowers of Chang'an in a single day. The procession gradually arrived at the palace. Inside the palace, people had long departed, leaving nothing behind. Scattered across the ground were the bodies of eunuchs and maidservants, and upon pushing open a door, numerous concubines hung, there having met their tragic end. Chen Yang understood that these were likely concubines of the Han Emperor, whom he could not take with him, and did not wish to leave for the Yellow Turban Army. To be granted death was their best outcome. Not far away, the brawny Li Kuei looked on with pity at the group of eunuchs who had died long before, lamenting, "What a pity for such a handsome figure just like this. It seems there is still some warmth. What if?" Hearing this, Chen Yang felt a chill run down his spine and instinctively distanced himself from Li Kuei. Cleaning up the aftermath and rebuilding the palace was the task at hand. This was the work that lay ahead for the Yellow Turban Army. 2 days later, a troop brought the Han Emperor and his family, unceremoniously tossing them into the side hall where Chen Yang was. General Chen indeed has a gift for foresight. The Han Emperor attempted to flee overnight, but we intercepted him in Yinzhou, where he still had 2 of his imperial guards fiercely resisting. Fortunately, we fulfilled our mission and annihilated the entire force of the Yellow Turban Army. One general, kneeling on one knee, addressed the figure standing with his hands behind his back on the high platform, who had his back to the crowd. "I have just reported to General Song, who said that you have full authority to handle this matter." Chen Yang turned around, removed his battle robe, and changed into a scholarly garment. His long hair was tied back, revealing a refined demeanor. At this moment, he was no longer the cold-faced strategist he once was. He was an entirely different person. Even the kneeling general couldn't help but sigh inwardly, acknowledging that General Chen was indeed extraordinary, able to bring peace to the world with his pen and stabilize the realm with his horse. The Han Emperor and his group were bound tightly and tossed onto the ground, their faces ashen. In such circumstances, defeat meant only one path: death. When Chen Yang's calm gaze swept over the Han Emperor, the latter broke out in a cold sweat. He had long heard of this cold-blooded strategist, and having enjoyed a lifetime of wealth and power, he was extremely afraid of death. If not for his mouth being covered, he would have begged for mercy. However, Chen Yang merely glanced at him before turning his attention to the others. Almost all of their eyes displayed a desperate plea and a yearning for life. Only one young maiden, about 18 or 19 years old, with skin like fine jade and hair like delicate snow, despite being bound in a very humiliating manner, still could not hide her stunning beauty. Her beautiful eyes were filled with unwilling rage, and even when she met Chen Yang's gaze, she showed no sign. Chen Yang could not help but take another look at the maiden, then turned to the general below and said, "With a new nation about to be established, it is inappropriate to take lives. Exile them beyond the borders and let them fend for themselves." Naturally, the general dared not question Chen Yang's words and immediately cupped his fists in agreement. However, his eyes flickered. Did General Chen just take a few extra glances at that maiden? Today, who does not know that Chen Yang is the most trusted confidant of Song Jiang and is to become the prime minister of the new dynasty? If he does not curry favor now, when will he? The general pondered briefly and quickly reached a decision. As night fell, Chen Yang had just finished bathing and changing into fresh robes, preparing to retire for the night, when an abrupt knock echoed at his door. He opened the door to find the same fiery-eyed young woman from earlier standing before him, bound tightly in ropes, her mouth sealed by a binding talisman that silenced her speech. Chen Yang froze momentarily. Was this some kind of restraint game? Then with a wry smile, he murmured to himself, "So this is how you test your officials? Come in." He turned and stepped back into the room. The girl at the threshold hesitated, her expression shifting rapidly. Then after a pause, she followed him inside. With a soft shush, Chen Yang flicked a finger, sending a thread of spiritual energy across the threshold to close the door behind them. He then turned, eyes alight with quiet amusement regarding the girl, tense yet fiercely defiant. After a moment's thought, he extended his hand and slowly approached her. Her eyes widened in alarm, then flared with indignation. She recoiled, sharply stepping backward again and again. Yet he merely reached up and gently dispelled the silencing seal upon her lips. Nothing more. Then, hands clasped behind his back, he turned away and settled calmly into a rocking chair. "What is your name?" She felt deeply affronted, glaring at him with a gaze both furious and powerless. After a long silence, she gritted her teeth and spat out, "Beast. Then I shall call you Beast then." Unfazed, Chen Yang lifted a teacup to his lips and spoke softly. Lu Jinyao immediately retorted, "Beast refers to you." "I know it refers to me," Chen Yang nodded. His sharp reply left the girl strangely disarmed, bereft of words, even of anger. A jest truly. These were tricks he'd long since outgrown as a child. Still, the girl was strikingly beautiful, especially when enraged, like a tiny cat whose fur bristled with indignation. Chen Yang smiled faintly, setting aside levity. "I know you, Lu Jinyao, the youngest daughter of Emperor Lu Xia of the Han Dynasty, beloved princess of the imperial house, Princess Weiyang. Am I correct?" "If you already know, why ask?" Lu Jinyao snapped. "I wanted to hear it from your own lips. Since you refused, I had no choice but to speak it for you." Chen Yang rose, eyes crinkling with quiet mirth. "You're dreadfully dull. I've no patience for further banter. Let us begin." At those words, Lu Jinyao instantly tensed, her gaze sharpening with suspicion as she edged backward. "What do you intend? You are a monster, a beast, a cold-blooded fiend. Why say such things?" Chen Yang chuckled softly as he drew nearer. Bound and helpless, Lu Jinyao could not evade him. She was inevitably drawn into his grasp. "You shattered the great Han, slaughtered my people. Because of you, my father and mother were cast beyond the frontier. Alive or dead, none can say. A man like you will surely suffer heavenly retribution, dying a mutilated corpse. If I ever walk free from this place, I swear I shall remember this humiliation. And one day I will kill you for the people of the Han, for my sovereign parents, for my elder brothers and sisters." The more Chen Yang listened, the stranger his expression grew. This girl's mind seemed distinctly unbalanced. If she spoke so plainly, did she truly believe he would let her live? His thoughts ran thus, but his hands never paused. Lu Jinyao continued her tirade, yet her insults cycled through the same few crude phrases, utterly impotent against him. "Pervert. Beast. Swine, wait." Midrant, she suddenly realized the ropes binding her had loosened. Chen Yang withdrew his hand, looking thoroughly bored. "Go on then, leave. You're insufferably loud. As for someone who hasn't even grown proper hair yet, you truly think I'd do anything to you?" He glanced pointedly at a certain part of her body, wearing an unmistakable look of disdain. You're just letting me go. What else? Would you prefer to stay and serve as my bed-warming maid?" "I wouldn't object." He shrugged. Killing her was well within his power, but entirely unnecessary. How delightfully presumptuous. "Just wait. Sooner or later I will return to kill you." Freed at last, Lu Jinyao bolted from the room like a startled hare. Chen Yang shook his head, stifling a quiet laugh, only to be jolted awake moments later by another urgent knocking at his door. He opened it to find Lu Jinyao once again standing there, furtive, flustered, and oddly plaintive. The entire perimeter is swarming with patrols. I can't get out." Chen Yang sighed. "So now you expect me to escort you? Well, may I, eh? May you? You vow to kill me, and yet demand I deliver you safely. Where in this world does such fortune exist? More to the point, I spared you out of mercy. Why should I go further? What gives you the audacity? Wah, father never shouts at me like this. I'm not your father. Wah, you're so frightening." He sighed again. Throughout his life, he'd found women's tears unbearable, not because they moved him, but because they invariably made him want to laugh. With a gentle, knowing smile, Chen Yang extended his hand toward Lu Jinyao. "Truly, you leave me no choice. Climb on. Remember this kindness, for when you come to kill me, strike with mercy." She nodded solemnly. "I promise. I'll leave you a whole corpse." Uttered in the softest, most timid voice imaginable, yet carrying the fiercest threat, perhaps only this young girl could wield such paradoxical power. Then, cradling her slight frame, Chen Yang leapt, soaring a full kilometer in a single bound, until they stood beyond the walls of Luoyang. "This is far enough. Beyond here your fate lies in heaven's hands." Gently setting her down, he spoke. He already knew more or less what lay ahead as a scion of the fallen imperial house, possessing both peerless beauty and royal blood. Her destiny hinged on fortune, either a tranquil life beside a worthy husband or a descent into utter ruin. Lu Jinyao bowed deeply. "You'd better wait for me then. I'll await your blade with bared neck." Chen Yang replied, tone cool and unruffled. Then her slender figure faded slowly into the velvet darkness of night. The following morning, Song Jiang summoned all his commanders to hold the first imperial council within the unfinished palace halls, debating fiercely over territorial division and authority. Chen Yang attended without fail, listening silently, saying nothing. A general clad in gleaming iron armor sidled up beside him, face wreathed in obsequious smiles. This was Huang Shan, the very officer who had delivered the girl the previous night, valiant in battle, yet masterful in courtly maneuvering. Assuming Chen Yang had already claimed the exquisitely beautiful Fallen Princess, Huang Shan approached to claim credit, and to beg Chen Yang's favor in speaking well of him before Song Jiang. After all, Chen Yang's word carried more weight than any among them. Seeing Huang Shan, Chen Yang offered a faint spring-like smile. To Huang Shan, that smile felt like winter's thaw, divine radiance descending from heaven. His heart soared. His glorious future shimmered just within reach. As murmurs rippled through the crowd, Chen Yang slowly raised his hand. Huang Shan, witnessing this gesture, was so overwhelmed with excitement, he nearly fainted. Yet the moment Chen Yang lifted his hand, he spoke with calm deliberation. General Huang Shan of Huangshan is a valiant warrior. With the frontier garrisons recently unmanned and the post lying vacant, I hereby nominate General Huang Shan to assume command of the border defenses, to safeguard the lives and peace of our people within the pass. Having spoken, Chen Yang bestowed upon Huang Shan an encouraging glance. Grateful for General Chen's patronage, Huang Shan began, his voice thick with gratitude, only to freeze mid-sentence, eyes widening in sudden startled realization as he stared at Chen Yang. General Chen, have you perhaps mistaken me for another? No mistake has been made, Chen Yang replied firmly. In my judgment, General Huang is the foremost choice to defend the frontier. Your agile mind and tactical acumen make you more than capable of outmaneuvering the fiends beyond the border. He pointed decisively toward Huang Shan, his tone unwavering. Moreover, General Huang, do you not wish to stand as humanity's very first bulwark against peril? Huang Shan stood speechless, stunned into silence. Commanding the frontiers sounded like a prestigious appointment, but in truth it was perilous beyond measure. Ceaseless assaults by demons, unrelenting dread, and exile from the capital, effectively severing all prospects of advancement. This, Huang Shan hesitated, his gaze shifting away from reverence toward wary uncertainty. Unexpectedly, Song Jiang struck the dragon throne with a resounding clap and declared, since General Chen so strongly recommends him, I, Song Jiang, shall place absolute trust in his judgment. Huang Shan, you shall henceforth command an army of 500,000 and march immediately to Jiaozhou Pass to fortify the frontier. With the imperial decree issued, Huang Shan had no choice but to bow in solemn assent, his eyes clouded with profound disappointment. Observing his expression, Chen Yang gave a faint, imperceptible shake of his head. His recommendation had been strategic. Huang Shan was consummately cunning, so much so that a single glance from Chen Yang had already delivered Lu Jinyao into his hands. Had Huang Shan remained in the capital, men like Song Jiang, blunt, straightforward warriors, would stand no chance against his guile. Given time, he might well bribe the entire court into submission. And then, what governance would remain? Once Song Jiang concluded the matter of Huang Shan, the discourse naturally turned to Chen Yang. Brother Chen, I intend to proclaim our dynasty Song with the era name Jinghe, symbolizing flourishing splendor and universal harmony. What say you? Excellent, truly excellent, Chen Yang replied with a soft, courteous laugh. A new dynasty must be founded on wise counsel. Brother Chen, will you accept the office of Grand Chancellor of Song, guiding our realm's inception and securing its sovereignty? At these words, every gaze in the hall converged upon Chen Yang. To serve as Grand Chancellor was to stand second only to the Emperor, supreme among 10,000 ministers. This was no idle proposal. Song Jiang's offer amounted to entrusting him with half the empire's authority. Should Chen Yang choose to wield it, the Song dynasty would in effect answer to him alone. Who could resist such a position? Though many had long suspected it, hearing the appointment confirmed still stirred quiet awe within them. Under the weight of countless eyes, Chen Yang swept aside his azure robe, a serene, scholarly grace unfolding around him, as if he were a celestial being untouched by mortal concerns, drifting through clouds with effortless composure. I am deeply honored by your generosity, Brother Jiang, but my aspirations lie elsewhere. I humbly beg you to rescind this appointment. Song Jiang blinked, then smiled, utterly unperturbed, as though the refusal were perfectly natural. This was the Chen Yang he knew. Had power been his aim throughout their campaigns, Chen Yang would have seized the throne itself countless times, becoming emperor in Song Jiang's stead. Yet he had not. Victorious beyond measure, yet never arrogant. Fearsome in renown, yet gentle as a cultivated scholar. Truly, Brother Chen was a banished immortal walking among mortals. The others stood dumbfounded, mouths agape, words failing them entirely. Before such unimaginable privilege, they could conceive no rational reason to decline. Since Brother Chen declines the chancellorship, stay with us a while longer. I shall honor you properly as the great hero you are. Stroking his beard, Song Jiang spoke with a gentle, knowing smile. Then I thank you, Brother Jiang. Thereafter, Chen Yang took residence in Luoyang City. Though now Emperor Song Jiang often cast aside protocol to seek Chen Yang for wine, drinking until both lost themselves in intoxication, forgetting rank, time, and duty alike. One day Song Jiang again drank himself into oblivion, slumping across the table, snoring deeply. Chen Yang remained clear-eyed, silently shaking his head before turning his gaze toward the window. Luoyang City, though magnificent, could not rival the tranquil serenity he had known in Baiqing. Here material abundance reigned, but it could not fill the quiet hollowness within his spirit. And so on that day Chen Yang cradled Dali, the cat now plump as a snowball, and stepped beyond Luoyang's borders, setting course for Baiqing. He bade no farewells, not because he lacked affection, but because none were needed. Each had found their path. Reunion would serve only to stir unnecessary sorrow. At dawn Song Jiang awoke as usual and called out twice, his voice warm and familiar. Brother Chen, I'm off to morning court. Let's drink ourselves senseless again soon. A breeze swept through the chamber. No reply came. Turning, he found the room utterly empty, as if Chen Yang had never set foot in Luoyang at all. He recalled that day. Chen Yang, riding through falling blossoms, met by the wary, distrustful glances of the common folk, yet remaining utterly unruffled, serene as still water beneath storm winds. A quiet smile touched Song Jiang's lips as he stood motionless by the window, lost in thought. Naturally, he missed the morning court entirely. That same day, imperial edicts appeared at the gates of every major city, proclaiming Chen Yang's extraordinary feats, clarifying the wartime circumstances, affirming that civilian casualties had been unavoidable, and appointing Chen Yang as imperial inspector of the mortal realm, whose authority over all officials rivaled that of the Son of Heaven himself. Such power left even seasoned ministers breathless. Along the road, Chen Yang held Dali, feeling less like a companion and more like a living sack of pork. I'd heard tales of cats raised like pigs, but never imagined the fool would be me. Dali, it's time you shed some weight. Down you go. Walk a little. Mew. Dali responded with a plaintive cry, burying her head deeper into Chen Yang's chest in defiant protest. When kittens your age live elsewhere, they're already hunting rats for supper. Look at you, forever clinging, forever indulged. Where is your dignity? Though his words were stern, a tender, indulgent smile softened his features. Perhaps for all his endless years ahead, only Dali would walk beside him. Eternal life, destined for solitude, with no final rest. Yet for Dali's own health, he gently set her down. Walk a little. Mew. She shook her head, and finally, under his patient urging, took her first deliberate steps. Yes, just like that. Walk with the vigor of a tiger emerging from mist. Stride, as if crossing centuries. Boom. Even as Chen Yang spoke, a cataclysmic roar split the heavens, earth trembling violently beneath his feet. Before him, a translucent, luminescent screen shimmered into existence. The air carried a faint, acrid scent of decay, strangely, hauntingly familiar. A massive palace suddenly emerged from the ground, resembling an immortal palace from the heavens, leaving one in awe. However, Chen Yang was not concerned about this. Instead, his focus was on the barrier of light that separated him from Dali, making it feel as if they were worlds apart. Meow. Dali seemed to have been startled, letting out a sudden cry, its fur standing on end as it warily stared at the barrier of light before it. Chen Yang calmed down, recalling that 1,000 years ago this barrier only allowed exit, but not entry. Now he was on the outside while Dali was trapped inside. As long as he could get Dali to obey and come out on its own, everything would be fine. With that thought, Chen Yang sighed in relief, casually picking up a stick to use as a cat toy, and flashed Dali a warm smile. Dali, be good, come over to my side. Hearing this, Dali was indeed attracted, beginning to walk toward Chen Yang. Yes, just like that, you're only one step away. Chen Yang continued to entice, watching as Dali came with. Suddenly there was a loud bang as Dali collided with the barrier, its little head getting hurt, and it looked at Chen Yang with a resentful gaze, as if to say, you tricked me. Chen Yang was taken aback, wondering what had happened. Seeing this strange occurrence made him cautious. Could the rules of the barrier have changed? 1,000 years ago it was only an exit, so this time it should be. As this thought crossed his mind, Chen Yang instinctively reached out to test it. He touched the barrier with his fingertip, and to his surprise his entire hand easily passed through. It turned out this time it was an entrance only. Chen Yang sighed in realization, his expression shifting to one of sudden understanding. Yet in an instant his face fell. Damn it, this is just leading him in by various means. With Dali inside and not being able to go without food or water, the only way to save Dali was for him to go in and find a solution. Sighing, Chen Yang reluctantly lifted his foot and slowly stepped through the barrier. Although he knew this entrance could mean another 1,000 years, he couldn't abandon Dali. Upon entering the barrier, Chen Yang was hit by a nauseating stench of blood. Looking closely, the palace had appeared at the site where the Yellow Turban Army clashed with the court. Not long ago, this place was littered with 1,000,000 corpses, a scene of white bones and a chilling atmosphere. Why would the palace choose such a place to appear? Chen Yang fell into confusion, but soon felt Dili lying against his leg, gnawing with its little fangs. Are you hungry? Chen Yang patted Dili's head. Meow? Dili nodded obediently. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, Chen Yang kicked it away. If you're hungry, go catch mice yourself. There's nothing here for you to eat. After that, Chen Yang circled around the palace. It was still exactly the same as it had been 1,000 years ago, with not a hint of change. However, he sensed that the palace seemed to be hovering here, absorbing the rich blood energy from the soil. Could it be that it maintains energy by absorbing blood energy? Chen Yang muttered to himself, recalling that when the palace first appeared 1,000 years ago, countless cultivators had died before him, and at that time, he had no cultivation, so he naturally could not sense the strangeness. This current anomaly piqued Chen Yang's interest. He approached the palace, reaching out to touch the wall, which felt icy and lifeless, suggesting that no one lived here, or perhaps it was an abandoned palace. Uncertain of the origin of this palace, or what it was intended for, Chen Yang shook his head. After wandering for a while, he found no entrance and gave up on investigating further. At that moment, Dili appeared, proudly strutting toward Chen Yang with 2 field mice in its mouth. It first offered one of the mice to Chen Yang, nodding, as if to suggest he should eat too. Then it lowered its head, seriously eating its own mouse. Chen Yang chuckled, surprised that Dili could show such a warm. He pushed the mouse towards Dili to indicate he wasn't going to eat, then sat cross-legged on the ground, pondering how to escape this place. Staying here for 1,000 years wouldn't be a problem for him, but Dili couldn't stay. It would eventually starve. However, Chen Yang found that he couldn't calm down at all. Just then he heard a faint rustling sound nearby. Chen Yang immediately looked up toward the source of the noise. He saw a weak figure outside the barrier, curiously observing everything around. Lu Jinyao. You have? Chen Yang squinted, puzzled. Upon hearing his voice, Lu Jinyao quickly turned to him, surprised to find someone else inside. When she recognized it was Chen Yang, her guard relaxed, and she puffed out her cheeks. Leave? With just my 2 legs and no food, where could I go? Chen Yang gazed at Lu Jinyao, who looked a bit disheveled and had lost her delicate charm, and he couldn't help but be taken aback, realizing it was indeed true. Is this the legendary Immortal Palace? How impressive. I want to come in and search for treasures. Lu Jinyao looked at the towering palace, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Don't come in, there's no way out once you enter. Facing the somewhat silly Lu Jinyao, Chen Yang issued a warning. If you just want to trick me into not coming in so you can hoard all the treasures for yourself, right? I won't fall for it. Hearing this, Lu Jinyao, instead of leaving, obediently huffed defiantly and made a move to step into the barrier. It was hard to advise a stubborn fool. Chen Yang decided to ignore her, but for some reason a surge of irritability and bloodlust unexpectedly rose within him. Looking at Lu Jinyao's carefree expression, anger surged in his heart as he stood up, condensing a spiritual energy attack in his hand, ready to strike. You don't understand human language, do you? Get lost. Take 1 step forward and I will kill you. As soon as these words left his mouth, Lu Jinyao froze in her tracks, looking over at Chen Yang. Chen Yang's eyes turned blood red and a fierce, killing intent radiated from him, as if he was about to explode with violence at any moment. She instinctively took a step back, afraid to move forward. Okay, fine, I'll give you all the treasures, or I just won't come. Hearing this, the blood red in Chen Yang's eyes faded somewhat. Clarity regained control, and for some reason, he had genuinely felt the urge to kill just a moment ago. Chen Yang immediately realized that this palace was peculiar. It seemed capable of influencing one's consciousness, uncontrollably inducing violent urges. After regaining his composure, Chen Yang spoke to Lu Jinyao with a stern tone. In any case, this is not a place for you. Hurry and get as far away as you can. Faced with Chen Yang's fierce demeanor, even Lu Jinyao found it hard to resist. A hint of grievance crossed her stubborn little face, her eyes brimming with tears. I will eventually kill you to avenge myself. After saying this, she turned and walked away. But after taking a few steps, she shivered and retreated, her legs trembling slightly as she looked ahead with fear. Laughter echoed, followed by a few bald figures appearing in view. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect to find such a pretty girl while searching for immortal fortune. Oh, what a double blessing. The heavens truly have eyes. South, you sect will rise. Several bald men approached Lu Jinyao. She suddenly felt as if she had just escaped a wolf pack only to enter a tiger's den, and she took a few steps back, her expression filled with terror. Don't come any closer. Chen Yang intended to warn the girl, but upon hearing her words, he felt a rush of embarrassment. What nonsense are you saying? Hurry up and come in. As the several burly men drew closer, Lu Jinyao retreated further until she was almost beside Chen Yang. With no other choice, she stepped into the light barrier. Chen Yang sighed. Oh, perhaps this was fate. The burly men ignored the light barrier and entered the palace area, leering at the nervous Lu Jinyao. One of them smirked and said, "Haha, little girl, scream all you want. Even if you scream your lungs out, no one will come to save you." Lu Jinyao grasped Chen Yang's arm, her eyes pleading. Chen Yang shook his head. This group seemed a bit oblivious, standing here innocently while they claimed he wasn't human. You should tone it down a bit. After all, time is short. They'll leave you a life to enjoy the rest of your days. The leader of the bald men paused, looking at Chen Yang with suspicion. What do you mean, kid? Chen Yang pointed to the light barrier behind them. Try and see if you can get out. The bald man, however, scoffed and didn't even attempt it. We the Non-Yu sect are a great clan of the human race. There's no place we cannot go who can stop us. Sigh. Chen Yang sighed helplessly, but it's hard to convince those who are asking for death. Now you have two choices: either give us the girl beside you or join us after giving her to us. Upon hearing this, Chen Yang fell into deep thought. Lu Jinyao became tense immediately. What did this mean? He was actually wavering. She had thought he was a righteous man, but unexpectedly he hesitated at this moment. It was over. Lu Jinyao felt a wave of despair and resolved that no matter which choice Chen Yang made, she would dash into the light barrier without hesitation. After a moment of silence, Chen Yang suddenly raised his head, a glint of wisdom flashing in his eyes. The bald men noticed this and chuckled. Those who know how to adapt are the wise. I assume you have made your choice. That's right. Do I choose a blunt angle? Chen Yang nodded and said. The bald men were instantly puzzled. What the hell are you talking about? There's no third option among the choices we gave you. Everything can be a blunt angle. Chen Yang said casually, his hand slowly rising as a powerful spiritual energy began to surge. During the time he was pondering, he was merely stalling for time. In the next moment, the spiritual energy erupted, and a glowing sphere was hurled from Chen Yang's hand. Since the system only granted him 2 life-saving techniques, Chen Yang would only use the most basic attacks in battle. High-level combat often requires the simplest forms of attack, and thus Chen Yang was confident in this charged strike. The sudden battle took the bald men by surprise, and they were instantly struck by this attack. Dust flew up, obscuring the scene. However, as the dust slowly settled, the bald men stood unscathed, not a scratch on them. Damn it, don't you know that our Non-Yu sect excels in defense? Don't even mention your golden core. Even if a nascent soul, a great ascension, or a tribulation transcendence were here, if you hit me, I Yang Budo can still grunt and consider it a loss. The leader named Yang Budo brushed off the dust on his clothes and contemptuously walked toward Chen Yang. Chen Yang was taken aback, suddenly realizing how terrifying this group of bald men's defense was. Wait a minute. He raised his hand to stop the steps of the bald men. Do you have anything to say before you die? Haha. Chen Yang chuckled softly. Your defense is indeed strong, but I have something even more powerful. Oh. Yang Budo was instantly intrigued, looking at Chen Yang curiously, as if waiting for a last-ditch. Cough cough, Jinyao. Come closer, be careful not to get blood on you later. Chen Yang assumed a fighting stance and reminded the somewhat naive Lu Jinyao. Lu Jinyao nodded and stepped closer to Chen Yang, fearing that he might strike and splatter blood on her face. My technique is a top-tier heavenly grade, you better be ready for it. Upon hearing this, Yang Budo and the others immediately turned serious. A top-tier heavenly grade technique was something only legendary immortals possessed. In reality, it was unheard of. It was said that when a heavenly grade technique emerged, it would be coveted by all major forces, its power being unparalleled. Yang Budo had read in an ancient text about a legend where a young man inadvertently obtained a heavenly grade technique capable of imprisoning the heavens with one finger and shaking mountains with another, unmatched in power. Be cautious, this kid doesn't seem simple. Yang Budo warned his companions, as if facing a full Xuanwu. Over here, Chen Yang had already begun to unleash his technique, and a faint tortoise shell suddenly appeared before the group. Although it looked somewhat ethereal, the tortoise shell exuded an imposing aura, causing a tremendous pressure that felt like Mount Tai pressing down, making it hard to breathe. Is this the heavenly grade technique? The bald men gasped, unable to help but marvel. In the midst of their astonishment, Chen Yang had already shouted the full name of his technique. Back armor. Boom. A massive Xuanwu appeared in midair like a towering mountain, slowly enveloping Chen Yang and Lu Jinyao within. The shell of the Xuanwu was densely covered with numerous ancient runes, resembling a true Xuanwu descending into the world. Die Nation 1. Yang Budo watched in fascination, even unconsciously speaking in his dialect. Soon after, the Xuanwu phantom gradually dissipated, revealing Chen Yang, sitting cross-legged on the ground, calm and composed. Isn't this a heavenly grade technique? Why does the Xuanwu disappear so quickly? Yang Budo looked puzzled. Exactly, it's a heavenly grade life-saving technique. Don't believe me? Try it out. Chen Yang nodded, pointing at the semi-transparent turtle shell in front of him. Are you trying to play tricks? Yang Budo was furious, throwing a punch. However, when this punch struck the turtle shell, it merely flashed a faint halo before rebounding his attack, causing Yang Budo to howl in pain. Their defense was strong, but they couldn't withstand their own power rebounding. By the way, did you bring any provisions? If you have extra, leave some for me. Chen Yang was calm and unhurried, pulling out a handful of gold coins from his pocket. He had taken some as travel expenses before leaving, as they were just material possessions. The bald men immediately felt insulted, glaring at Chen Yang in anger. What do you mean? Do you really think this turtle shell can protect you for a lifetime? Brothers, go after him and let him see the ultimate technique of our non-Yu sect. The South Yu sect, while not considered a powerful sect among the human race, is renowned for its defensive capabilities and endurance, proudly claiming to possess the strongest golden body among humans. However, no major sect takes them seriously. It is merely a self-entertainment farce. Watch my spear remain unyielding, Yang Budo shouted, taking the lead to strike. With a loud crash, the tortoise shell showed no reaction. Next, it was another person's turn. Watch my 7 stabs of the night. Another bald man stepped up, brandishing a dagger. He launched into a rapid flurry, stabbing the tortoise shell hundreds of times. He even created afterimages in the air. Wow, such speed! Chen Yang couldn't help but praise from within the tortoise shell. The bald man who used the 7 stabs of the night chuckled coldly, revealing a proud expression. Of course, this speed has been honed over 100 years of being single. In a single breath, I can deliver 500 strikes. That last one was not even my limit. As he spoke, a hint of arrogance flashed in his expression. Chen Yang was momentarily speechless. What was there? You're single, you're impressive. The 7 stabs of the night continued without pause. Gradually, Chen Yang lost interest and yawned. You all keep going while I'll take a nap. Chen Yang found a comfortable position and was about to lie down when he noticed Lu Jinyao staring intently at the attacks on the tortoise shell. Is this the attack of an immortal? Amazing. Amazing, my foot. What good is being able to hit if you can't break my tortoise shell first? Chen Yang muttered to himself as he closed his eyes. Lu Jinyao glanced at the several people attacking desperately, and then at Chen Yang, who lay sprawled on the ground fast asleep like a dead dog. She couldn't help but make a silent resolution. In the future, I must become a peerless immortal. I cannot be as dispirited as he is. If Chen Yang heard this, he would probably jump up and scold Lu Jinyao for being an ingrate. After all, he had saved her 2 or 3 times. It was one thing not to take him as a role model, but to say such things about him was outrageous. As time passed, the sun rose in the east and set in the west, and night fell unknowingly. Upon opening his eyes, several shiny bald heads reflected the moonlight, somewhat blinding Chen Yang, who instinctively shielded his eyes. Looking again, he saw the others with bloodshot eyes, seemingly tireless, still attacking the tortoise shell. They were truly persistent. No wonder they were from South Yu. Chen Yang sighed, but then realized something was amiss. These individuals seemed somewhat similar to how he was during the day, affected by the blood qi. Within this palace, their minds suppressed, leaving only restlessness and rage. Not long after, with a loud bang, Yang Budo's heavy fist struck the tortoise shell, causing a burst of blood mist. He actually broke his own fist, yet he still did not give up. His fierce gaze resembled that of a wild beast devoid of any human semblance. The tortoise shell emitted crashing noises, and seeing the bloodshot eyes of the bald men, Lu Jinyao finally felt fear. Taking advantage of the moonlight, she gently moved closer to Chen Yang, grasping the corner of his clothing. Chen Yang glanced at her, but said nothing, quietly observing the actions of the others, then looked around the palace. This did not seem like an immortal palace, rather it resembled a demonic lair. After all, an immortal's palace should be filled with an aura of immortality, greatly beneficial to cultivators. In contrast, this palace exuded a sense of strangeness. It absorbed blood qi for energy storage, the powerful barrier isolating the inside from the outside, and further influencing people's minds, inciting violent and bloodthirsty impulses. The bamboo shoots on the mountain were all taken by this palace. Who would dare claim this is an immortal palace? Just as he thought this, another loud bang sounded. Yang Budo broke his entire arm while striking it. Having lost his attacking arm, he made a decision against his will, starting to repeatedly headbutt the tortoise shell. Soon his entire head became bloodied and bruised. Lu Jinyao let out a startled cry. He. Then she tightly closed her eyes, afraid to look any further. Open your eyes, Chen Yang said coldly. No, it's too frightening. Lu Jinyao vigorously shook her head. The cultivation world has much more brutal things than this. Are you saying that in the future you won't dare to look at anything? With this you still dare to kill me? For some reason, an impulsive feeling surged in Chen Yang's heart, prompting him to say these words. Upon hearing this, Lu Jinyao trembled all over. Then she forced herself to open her eyes. Just one glance, and she immediately closed them again. As a royal princess, the most favored daughter of the Han Emperor, she had never seen such a bloody scene in her life. She had thought that even if cultivation involved fighting and killing, it would not be so cruel. Yet reality struck her like a blow. Open your eyes and witness the cruel cultivation world. Didn't you say you wanted to cultivate and kill me? If you can't even do this, you might as well find a good family to marry and to raise children and live a stable life. Chen Yang said expressionlessly, his tone cold. At this moment, Lu Jinyao seemed to have suffered a blow, a glimmer of despair flashing in her eyes. She recalled her father, who once bullied the world, her heroic elder brother, and the arrogant officials of the court. These people had once treated lives as mere weeds, killing at will. In her youth, she did not understand what death was. Even during the battle between the Tuzan Yellow Turban Army and the Imperial Guard, her father had ordered her to stay in the carriage and not look at it. Thus experiencing death firsthand at this moment made her realize how terrifying it truly was. Could it be that as a royal daughter she lacked even this bit of courage? How could she talk about revenge? Lu Jinyao questioned herself deep down when suddenly a surge of courage erupted from within. She did not want to live a mundane life. Her father was still waiting for her outside the borders, and she had enemies to deal with. Therefore she opened her eyes again. Chen Yang smiled at that moment and suddenly retracted the Xuanwu shell. With the obstacle removed, Yang Budo and the others instantly went berserk, pouncing towards Chen Yang. Chen Yang moved his figure and dodged their attacks. However, Lu Jinyao, who stood behind him, could not move as swiftly, and the targets immediately shifted to her. Lu Jinyao cried out in alarm, collapsing to the ground. Her eyes were filled with helpless despair, and her pretty face was marked with a look of grievance. She never expected Chen Yang to act this way. Sigh. A voice of lament came, followed by a surge of spiritual energy that effortlessly shattered Yang Budo and the others' defenses, killing them. The splattered blood stained Lu Jinyao's face, leaving her frozen in fear. At that moment, Chen Yang reached down to pick up the dagger used for the 7 stabs of the night, walking up to Lu Jinyao with a contemptuous smile. Is this the extent of your courage? Didn't you say you wanted to kill me? Didn't you want revenge? I'm giving you the opportunity now. Oh, take it, and come kill me. I won't resist. The dagger was presented before Lu Jinyao, with Chen Yang smiling, his pupils exuding a strange dark red hue. Under the moonlight, it appeared particularly eerie in Lu Jinyao's eyes. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. Lu Jinyao gazed at the dagger, emanating a cold light, lost in contemplation. Did she want to kill Chen Yang? If it weren't for Chen Yang, she might have already been sent beyond the borders, her life and death left to fate. If it weren't for Chen Yang, she wouldn't have escaped the multiple checkpoints of Luoyang City. If it weren't for Chen Yang, she might have already been defiled by those bald men, humiliated to death. Chen Yang had saved her life. However, Chen Yang harmed the common people of the Han Dynasty and even forced the great General Lu Ying to his death. Her father had also been displaced because of Chen Yang, his life and death unknown. She had her reasons to kill Chen Yang. After a moment's thought, Lu Jinyao trembled as she took the dagger. The blade was aimed at Chen Yang, yet she hesitated to strike. Are you going to kill me? Go on, do it, Chen Yang urged excitedly, a strange red light flashing in his eyes. If you don't strike, I will take action. Don't do this. Lu Jinyao was clearly still struggling. You worthless fool, if you miss this opportunity, you'll never be able to kill me in this lifetime. With a clang, the dagger fell to the ground, and Lu Jinyao gave a heartbreaking smile. I can't do it, just kill me. Do me this favor. My life was saved by you, so take it if you wish. A large hand suddenly grasped Lu Jinyao, and in the next moment, it was about to exert force to break her neck. Caught in the dilemma of killing or not killing, she would rather be killed by Chen Yang. At that moment, she smiled as if everything had been resolved. Chen Yang, however, sneered and was about to strangle Lu Jinyao. Boom. In the next instant, Chen Yang suddenly felt like he had been struck by lightning. The nearby celestial palace was trembling as if an earthquake had occurred. Moreover, a thick, dark red aura, almost tangible, surged forth as if it were some kind of signal. Chen Yang suddenly regained his senses. When he saw himself choking Lu Jinyao, he couldn't help but be astonished. What was I doing? Why did I suddenly lose consciousness just now? Thinking this, he quickly released his grip, and Lu Jinyao immediately burst into a fit of violent coughing, clearly having been nearly strangled to death. Looking at the suddenly changed Chen Yang, Lu Jinyao was puzzled. Why did Chen Yang, who was just furious, suddenly return to being a normal person? Something is off here. It's easy to unconsciously influence one's mind. You'd better be careful, Chen Yang reminded her, returning to his calm demeanor. Lu Jinyao nodded slightly, her eyes filled with confusion. Meanwhile, Chen Yang took this opportunity to test the celestial palace again. He discovered that by slightly circulating the spiritual energy within his body, he could block the invasion of this killing intent. He had simply not noticed this at first, while the killing intent was constantly seeking opportunities to invade his mind. If he relaxed even a little, it would find a chance. Thinking of this, Chen Yang couldn't help but worry about Lu Jinyao. She had no cultivation and naturally couldn't resist the killing intent here. Over time, it would pose a hidden danger. Moreover, even Chen Yang didn't know how long this palace would last. He could either teach her cultivation to resist the invasion, or give her a quick end, putting an end to it all. You choose, Chen Yang stated his thoughts. After all, he was not a bloodthirsty person. Even if he lived for a long time, he had not lost his basic humanity. Lu Jinyao, of course, chose cultivation without hesitation. Relying on the rations scavenged from the bald men, the two of them spent a pleasant time inside the light barrier. During the day, Chen Yang taught Lu Jinyao cultivation, and at night Lu Jinyao learned to cook. As a princess who had never touched the water of the Yangtze River, she found herself forced to cook. However, Chen Yang had never eaten a meal to save food. Seeing this, Lu Jinyao felt a surge of emotion. Chen Yang was willing to go hungry to ensure his survival. Could such a person truly be the legendary cold-blooded strategist? The legendary cold-blooded strategist had opened rivers causing floods that submerged the entire city of Luoyang, leading to the tragic deaths of countless innocent people. Yet at that time Chen Yang didn't even blink an eye. And such a cold-blooded person formed a striking contrast with the calm-poised individual before her. As Lu Jinyao pondered, her gaze was fixed on Chen Yang, momentarily lost in thought. Feeling her gaze, Chen Yang opened his eyes from his meditation. "What are you staring at? Hurry and eat. Don't forget that you have cultivation to practice tomorrow. Don't be careful." Hearing Chen Yang's calm, yet slightly urging tone, Lu Jinyao couldn't help but pout, and responded, after saying that, she began to dig into the food in front of her. Though it was bland and tasteless, Lu Jinyao found it delicious, a long-lost sense of security quietly surfacing in her heart. In a neighboring city of Luoyang above Qingzhou, dozens of elders clad in snow-white crane-style robes, their figures graceful and ethereal, were soaring through the clouds on swords. "This time the demon palace has re-emerged. We must not let the tragedies of the past repeat themselves," said a bearded elder at the front to another elder beside him, whose demeanor was that of a celestial being. King Lingzi nodded slightly, letting out a sigh. 1,000 years ago, we were still a step too late. As the representatives of the righteous path, we must not allow such tragedies to reoccur. The other elders echoed in agreement. At this moment, a drunken elder with a youthful face interjected, "However, it seems there was a lad cultivating in the demon palace 1,000 years ago. That's quite interesting." After saying this, he shook a greenish-blue wine gourd in his hand and burped. "Interesting. Did you buy fake wine again today? At the time, there was a golden core cultivator blocking that lad. He just didn't dare to come out. I presume he's long dead after 1,000 years. Just a fleeting passerby, why bother to dwell on it? My sword sect upholds justice in the world and never intervenes in the struggles between cultivators. We should focus on resolving the demon palace issue." The elder with the sword couldn't help but interrupt the idle chatter of the others, urging them to take action. The group then fell silent, channeling their spiritual energy, their swords speeding up like rockets as they soared away. Within the light barrier, Chen Yang took a break and built 2 small wooden huts and a rocking chair. He lay back in the rocking chair, dozing off, his tone lazy. "I told you to cultivate, not to dance. Your posture is wrong. Start over." At this moment, Lu Jinyao stood on a wooden stump, balancing a small bowl on her head, wobbling precariously. She had maintained this posture for an entire morning, while simultaneously practicing the technique Chen Yang had given her, the 9 Yang divine art. She had thought cultivation would be simple, but she never expected it to be so difficult. Every day Chen Yang would have her maintain a strange posture for cultivation, with each day being different. Today's difficult move was particularly challenging, and she felt on the verge of collapsing. Suddenly, hearing Chen Yang's lazy voice, she felt a surge of respect. She thought Chen Yang was starving because he hadn't eaten for a long time. For Chen Yang's sake, she would persist. With that thought, Lu Jinyao grit her teeth, ignoring the soreness in her legs, and continued to hold on. 2 more hours passed. Lu Jinyao felt her head swim and her body sink as if laden with lead. Under the merciless sun, she was overtaken by dizziness and could not help but collapse. Just as she expected to hit the ground hard, she felt something soft touch the crown of her head, and then a warm embrace closed around her. Never having been treated so gently, a flush rose to her cheeks. Even her weariness was forgotten as her thoughts filled with the figure of Chen Yang. Chen Yang looked strained. Watching the still-dazed Lu Jinyao, he gritted his teeth and let go. "Don't act coy after getting your way. Planning to take advantage of me?" "Oh." Lu Jinyao stumbled, planted her hands on the ground, then rose up, all grievance. "I don't care. I don't want to cultivate today. I want to rest." "Rest? At your age, if you do not train diligently, how dare you think of resting?" Chen Yang chided her with an expression of bitter disappointment. No matter how much he scolded, Lu Jinyao simply refused to rise. Rubbing her aching limbs, she complained, "If I'd known cultivation would be this grueling with so many strange postures each day, I wouldn't have trained at all. I'd rather drift through life following you." Having spent so much time with Chen Yang, she had gradually let go of some restraint. Though not fully reconciled, she returned to her earlier impetuous manner. As she spoke, she pictured Chen Yang in meditation and thought how wonderful it would be to cultivate like him. Wait, after being teased by Chen Yang for days, she finally caught on and looked at him. "Why don't you have to hold postures when—" Chen Yang did not hide the truth. "You don't have to hold positions. I was teasing you. The immortal path is long and arduous. Staying in one posture invites spinal ailments. I'm doing this for your own good. You'll thank me someday." Lu Jinyao froze, then remembered all the hardship she had endured these days and felt anger flare. "Oh, mind your tone. I am your—" Before Chen Yang could finish, Lu Jinyao launched herself like a famished tigress, seized and parted her cherry lips to reveal pearly teeth, and tried to bite his arm. Fortunately, Chen Yang reacted in time, wrenched free at once, and fled in a hurry. "You've turned on me. Little wench, you dare bite your benefactor. Don't run, I'll kill you." One ran, and the other gave chase. Amid the lonely light screen, their antics added a streak of life. Before long, Lu Jinyao was panting for breath while Chen Yang remained vigorous and showed no sign of fatigue. Surprise flashed in her eyes. He clearly neither ate nor drank. How could he still be so full of strength? Wait. Her mind was always a step slow, but now she recalled what her father had once said: some cultivators who reach the higher realms attain bigu, subsisting without food or drink by drawing nourishment from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Though she could not cultivate herself, she had heard that piece of trivia. Chen Yang was clearly such a person. She remembered how she had worried about Chen Yang days ago, cooking for him, lest he starve while he, obstinate as a dead duck, refused to taste a single bite. She had thought him self-sacrificing, enduring hunger, so she might eat more. Thinking back now, Lu Jinyao felt a welter of grievance. Unable to catch him and feeling toyed with, she felt she had utterly failed at being a princess. She slumped to the ground in a sulky heap, ignoring the dust, and began to sob quietly. After running a while, Chen Yang noticed there was no one left behind and turned. So you resort to crying when you can't win. He could hardly bear to see a woman cry. With a sigh, he stepped beside Lu Jinyao. Feeling the presence before her, Lu Jinyao lifted her tear-blurred gaze. Seeing Chen Yang's tall, broad frame, a small warmth rose in her chest. Here to comfort me. Well, you have some conscience. Chen Yang slowly reached out as if to stroke her head. Lu Jinyao closed her eyes, nervous. In the next instant, a burst of laughter sounded at her ear. Ha ha, look at you. You're even sniffling. Lu Jinyao, stung and furious, shot up and, taking him by surprise, bit down on his arm. He'll kill you. What the hell? Are you a dog? Chen Yang exclaimed as he pushed her away. They tussled back and forth. In the end, a faint tooth mark remained on his arm. Lu Jinyao's tears turned into laughter, and she flashed a triumphant smile. Chen Yang's face, however, was, you still dare to smile? Later, left hand, pull right ear, right hand, insert into left nostril, legs, slightly bent mouth open with tongue out. Practice in that posture for the whole morning. No rest until the time is up. I want. Lu Jinyao shook her head in refusal. Huh, serves you right. Chen Yang raised his hand to give the girl a lesson. But in the next moment, the sound of slaughter came from afar. 1,000 cultivators poured out of the forest, each eye gleaming with greed, their expressions chillingly cold, as if the palace had warped their minds. Not good, Chen Yang cried, recalling the carnage from 1,000 years past. Last time they could not get in, and he had been. Now it was different. Once they entered, they could not leave. All would die. There was no time for words. Chen Yang scooped Lu Jinyao into his arms, ignited his spiritual energy, and vanished in a blur of motion. On a small clearing, a large raccoon dog pawed relentlessly at a tiny hole, seemingly trying to snatch mice. Peering to the bottom, one could see a fat rat and a nest of pups. The great rat trembled with fear, yet clung fiercely to its young. The raccoon dog was moved to tears at the sight and reached out a paw to seize them. The family was about to be made whole. But in the next instant, the raccoon dog felt itself lift into the air. Watching the rats recede, it uttered a plaintive whine. With the raccoon dog in his left arm and Lu Jinyao in his right, Chen Yang moved at speed. He soon found a hidden corner and deployed his Xuanwu back armor. He exhaled. Now this should hold. Watching the swarm of cultivators surge up, Chen Yang allowed himself a slight, excited glint in his eyes. This was all prey delivered on a platter. Soon a crowd of cultivators reached the light screen and without hesitation stepped through. The immortal opportunity is mine. None of you may snatch it, someone shouted, and angry roars rose around the place. Who do you think you are? I am Sima Wu of Liangzhou Luyun sect. The Xianyuan is mine. No one can stop me, mark my words. Don't spout nonsense. Luyun sect amounts to nothing. My Dao sect's immortal arts are peerless. Who dares challenge me? You. Enough bickering. Fight it out. Chen Yang, one to enjoy a spectacle, shouted opportunely. A single stone stirred up 1,000 waves. In an instant, all the arguing cultivators halted their chatter upon hearing the shout. Have you all eaten? If not, take a punch from me. Unbeknownst to who, a fierce shout erupted. Then a massive fist shadow descended from the sky, crushing several cultivators in one blow. What the hell, you don't play fair, attacking from the shadows. I'll kill you for this. Watch me, the great desert celestial palm. In an instant, the scene descended into chaos as everyone began to fight. In contrast, Chen Yang and a cat nestled comfortably within a turtle shell in the corner, enjoying the scene. Lu Jinyao sighed in relief. The world of cultivation was terrifying. They fought at the slightest disagreement. It seemed safer to be near Chen Yang. Just as she thought this, a sudden bang hit her on the head. Lu Jinyao winced in pain, letting out a yelp. Why are you hitting me? Don't just stand there watching. Carefully observe their fighting techniques. It will benefit you. And what about you? Lu Jinyao recalled that Chen Yang's fighting skills were also quite poor, expressing her dissatisfaction. Me? Chen Yang pointed at himself. I don't need to. Reluctantly, Lu Jinyao, though unwilling, began to observe closely as Chen Yang suggested. One must admit this first-hand experience was far more direct than what Chen Yang could convey with words. As Lu Jinyao watched, she became absorbed. Earth-grade low-tier martial technique of the Dao sect, thunder execution. A purple lightning bolt erupted from the hands of a Dao sect disciple, then struck fiercely toward an enemy. The opponent was instantly killed, charred all over with wisps of blue smoke rising. It doesn't seem that difficult, Lu Jinyao murmured as she observed the opponent's technique, slowly attempting it herself. In the next moment, a purple lightning bolt the size of a thumb manifested from her hand. I did it, Lu Jinyao exclaimed excitedly. However, she realized she had condensed the lightning, but didn't know how to control it. This was awkward. What to do? She had to seek Chen Yang's help. Chen Yang opened his eyes slightly, seeing that bolt of purple lightning. He sneered disdainfully. How much power can a thumb-sized lightning bolt have? Just release it as you wish. A glimmer of surprise flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect Lu Jinyao to grasp the opponent's technique in such a short time, just by observing. Lu Jinyao exclaimed in realization, then did not control the lightning in her hand. The next moment, that small lightning dragon burst forth like a wild horse, swiftly attacking the only conductor present, Chen Yang. Chen Yang was unconcerned. The dragon did not roar, and the tiger did not howl. The little lightning was laughable. Boom. The lightning suddenly exploded, releasing a cloud of smoke, as if a miniature nuclear bomb had detonated inside the turtle shell. As the smoke dissipated, Chen Yang's hair stood on end, resembling an electrified rat, while the large raccoon in his arms looked even worse for wear, with a few of its fluffy hairs singed. Damn it, I was careless. Is this Lu Jinyao really releasing this for the first time? Chen Yang could hardly believe it. Lu Jinyao stood dazed for a moment, wondering what was happening. Oh, was this really the lightning she released? What are you staring at? I haven't moved like this in ages. It feels tingly and comfortable. Chen Yang came back to his senses, looking strong and composed. Could he admit that he had received this attack unprepared, leading to the current situation? No. After calming Lu Jinyao, Chen Yang adjusted his clothes and distanced himself from her, lying down. Meanwhile, Lu Jinyao continued observing the battlefield. Great might, heavenly dragon palm, how impressive. I'll try it. Bang. A palm imprint appeared on Chen Yang's body. Though not powerful, it was extremely insulting, leaving a black handprint on his clothes, looking dreadful. Green snake phantom claw, this one seems good too. Whoosh. Chen Yang's clothes were instantly torn apart, revealing his broad chest and defined lines. What the hell do you want? Chen Yang woke up from his sleep again, covering his tattered blue shirt with both hands, wanting to cry, but having no tears. Lu Jinyao stuck out her tongue, a hint of admiration flashing in her eyes. She didn't expect Chen Yang's physique under the blue shirt to be so well-defined. Her face flushed slightly as she playfully said, I couldn't help it while observing the martial techniques. You can't help it, but you still have to restrain yourself around me. No more looking, come over and sleep with me. Chen Yang said angrily, wanting Lu Jinyao to learn to rest while like him, not to mess around. Huh. Lu Jinyao's mouth slightly opened in surprise, and her cheeks turned crimson. You beast, how annoying. Chen Yang realized the ambiguity in her words, fell silent, and silently expanded the coverage of the turtle shell, lying down a bit farther from Lu Jinyao. Now she could play however she wanted. Above the palace, a dozen ethereal figures suddenly appeared, each stepping on a long sword, exuding an extraordinary aura. Oh no, they have already begun to fight. It's not too late yet. The leader Fan Jinzi had a sharp gaze, his brow filled with a sense of righteousness. It seems the rules of the demon palace have changed again. Fansec Master, what do you think we should do? An elder among them observed the palace's light curtain and asked solemnly. Fan Jinzi contemplated briefly before decisively stating, I will go down to suppress their killing intent, and then you all join Elder Jiao to release the gourd's blood aura to quell this calamity from the demon palace. Everyone nodded in agreement, while Elder Jiao, holding the wine gourd, raised his head and drank all the fine wine from the gourd, shaking his hand. Instantly, a faint red mist released from the gourd, almost solidified blood aura. After 2,000 years of gathering blood aura, it can finally come in handy now. Elder Jiomingzi laughed. This blood aura had been collected by the Sword Sect over 2,000 years, but they did not kill indiscriminately to collect it. Instead, they sent disciples to gather the blood aura produced when people died during wars or natural disasters, adhering to the righteous path. Then let's get started. Just as Fan Jinzi was about to enter the light curtain, he suddenly heard Elder Jiomingzi exclaim beside him. Look! There's a girl down there unaffected by the blood aura, still cultivating. With his exclamation, everyone turned to look. Indeed, Lu Jinyao was completely unaffected by the demon palace, eagerly stealing various techniques. Not only was she learning, but she was also applying what she learned on the spot. No martial technique once seen by her could escape her replication. It was almost unimaginable. Such strong comprehension. This child has exceptional talent, remains calm under pressure, and is remarkably stable in character, managing to focus on practicing in this situation. Don't you think this resembles the legendary saint body, the heavenly transformation body? Fan Jinzi spoke. As he finished speaking, everyone gasped in astonishment. The heavenly transformation body is a physique derived from the heavenly Tao, possessing immense talent and exceptional comprehension, a rare constitution in the cultivation world that they never expected to encounter here. This child I will take into our sword sect. Everyone agreed, good talents are hard to come by, this is fate. Following that, Fan Jianzi began to implement their plan. However, Elder Jiumengzi was surprised again. Wait. Fan Jianzi's body shot out over 100 meters, yet he forcefully halted his momentum. Several elders of the sword sect looked at Jiumengzi with puzzled expressions. Can you just finish your sentence in one go? All this fuss is wasting everyone's time. Jiumengzi pointed at a figure below who was lazily dozing off. Look, doesn't this young man look a bit familiar? The crowd turned to see a young man drooling, lost in a daydream. If this young man had any distinguishing features aside from his laziness, it was the aura of tranquility that enveloped him even in his sleep. Jiumengzi, can you change this bad habit of yours? Just because you've had some horse piss you think you know everyone. Yeah, last time you got drunk and tried to befriend a wild dog insisting it was your brother, you completely embarrassed our sword. Though a few elders recognized Chen Yang, it had been a millennium since then. They were high above, why would they bother to remember someone as insignificant as a young man? Only a disordered elder like Jiumengzi would have a vivid impression of certain people. Jiumengzi's face flushed red with anger. Wine is the essence of grain, the more you drink the younger you become. I think you old fools are the ones getting senile. Wasn't this young man the one meditating in the demon palace 1,000 years ago? Oh, and then what? The elders displayed indifferent expressions, wondering how this related to them. Then what, you idiot? Can't you see this kid is only at the golden core level? A cultivator at the golden core realm has a lifespan of just over 500 years. There's something suspicious about him. Enough, let's postpone this discussion. We have more important matters to attend to. Fan Jianzi interrupted Jiumengzi, speaking in a deep voice. His status as sect leader proved useful, and soon the group fell silent. Fan Jianzi quickly flew towards the glowing barrier below. The chaotic battle continued with hundreds already dead or injured, and the intense blood energy from the deceased was greedily absorbed by the palace. The blood energy of these cultivators was evidently more potent than that of the million soldiers who had perished. The air was thick with the stench of blood. In the next moment, Fan Jianzi's figure burst through the air, standing firm as he radiated an air of pride, like a celestial being descending to the earth. He slowly raised his long sword, mumbling incantations. As he finished the spell, a powerful sword aura erupted from his body. However, this sword aura bore no killing intent. Instead, it carried an abundance of clarity, swiftly moving towards the chaotic crowd below like a swimming dragon. It brushed past everyone in the melee like a gentle breeze. As long as it touched them, their minds, influenced by the blood energy, were instantly severed. In an instant, the remaining thousands of cultivators regained their clarity. As they came to their senses, they looked at their bloodstained hands filled with terror. What exactly did I just do? Damn it, brother, how did you die? Was it by our Dao sect's martial art thunder slash? Who did this? The crowd glanced at the one who spoke, feeling embarrassed. Only the two of you from the Dao sect could have done this, so who else could it be? The Dao sect disciple seemed unable to believe it, all his eyes filled with anger and helplessness. At that moment, Fan Jianzi spoke loudly from the sky. Do not panic, everyone. You have been corrupted by the blood energy of the demon palace, causing this mutual slaughter. Our sword sect is a righteous sect here to rescue you and eliminate the disaster of the demon palace. Just stand still and do not move. We will perform supreme Dao techniques to break the barrier of the demon palace. The crowd instantly recognized him as they looked up at Fan Jianzi. It's the sword sect master, he's here to save us. The demon palace has caused great harm. We hope sect master Fan will act for the heavens and resolve this calamity. The sword sect is a prestigious sect, the #1 sword sect in the world. It truly lives up to its reputation. Various praises echoed throughout the scene. The reputation of the sword sect spread throughout the entire human cultivation world. Who didn't know of it? Despite some among them hailing from major sects, they felt insignificant compared to the transcendent power of the sword sect. They stood frozen in place, watching Fan Jianzi soar through the air, their expressions akin to those of a child watching their father cross the street to buy oranges. Fan Jianzi nodded to several elders. The elders instantly understood and turned their gazes toward usually carefree Jiumengzi. Did not dare to delay at such a critical moment and promptly took out his wine gourd, offering it to the sky. The gourd transformed into one towering over 100 feet high, a wine gourd. Urgent as a command, Supreme Laojuan, please show your spirit and open up. The wine gourd swayed and a massive amount of blood energy surged forth, flowing towards the demon palace like a torrent. Indeed, they had only one way to deal with the demon palace: feed it blood energy. As long as the palace was wealthed, it could naturally accelerate its progress and hide once again. And humanity could regain a millennium of peace. They had tried various methods, but could not inflict any harm on the demon palace. Finally, they realized that magic must be used against magic. As the massive blood energy made contact with the demon palace, it formed a gigantic vortex in the sky, reminiscent of a dragon sucking in water. At the center of the vortex was the demon palace. After accumulating 2,000 years of blood energy, this should be enough to satiate this large creature, right? Zhou Mengzi muttered to himself. It should be fine after all. This method has been tried countless times over 10,000 years with no repercussions. So once this blood energy is used up, we'll have to exhaust ourselves collecting more. When will this cycle end? Sigh. Chen Yang, who was asleep, was awakened by the commotion. Upon opening his eyes, he discovered that the demon palace was actually devouring blood energy in large amounts. What is going on? Are all the people dead? His voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard by everyone present. Lu Jinyao beside him quickly covered Chen Yang's mouth. But it was too late. The awakened crowd turned their gazes toward Chen Yang. They vaguely remembered that before their minds were completely affected, one person had taken advantage of the chaos to stir things up. It seemed to be this kid. Damn, he looked like he had just woken up while we were slaughtering each other. Who indulged him? Lu Jinyao smiled apologetically at the crowd before briefly explaining the situation to Chen Yang. Sword sect. I've never even heard of it. Chen Yang scratched his head and yawned, looking at the giant blood energy dragon in the sky, feeling an ominous premonition in his heart. It felt like these people were raising a tiger to their detriment, as if they encountered a dying fierce tiger and not only failed to kill it, but were also feeding it well every day, hoping that one day it would be tamed. A purely brain-dead action. Chen Yang couldn't help but curse. However, this one statement ignited the fury of everyone present. In an instant, Chen Yang became the center of attention, the target of all accusations. Who do you think you are? Initially, you fanned the flames, and now you dare to mention the sword sect. If you're so capable, why not come out of your turtle shell? Come on, hit me first before you talk. In no time, all the cultivators surrounded the turtle shell, pointing and gesturing at Chen Yang inside. As for Lu Jinyao, she was naturally ignored by everyone. This girl looked both obedient and adorable, so she was not considered Chen Yang's accomplice. However, she was particularly worried about Chen Yang, but dared not stand with him. She feared that if she chose the wrong side, she would also become the target of everyone's scorn. Inside the turtle shell, Chen Yang was not willing to back down. Behind the Xuanwu armor, was he afraid? He pointed at the only remaining disciple of the Dao sect in the arena and exclaimed, "How can you criticize me? Just now I saw you personally kill your own brother without even blinking an eye." Then he pointed at another person. "And you still consider yourself a disciple of the righteous sect? Just now you practiced a backhand grab, snatching from how many people's groins? Did you think I didn't see it? You are nothing but a pure demon. And you, young man, you played quite the game. How many things did you steal during the chaos? You must be quite the rogue, right?" And then Chen Yang rattled on. Although he had been asleep during the earlier melee, his golden core cultivation allowed him to perceive everyone's movements. These people were blinded by their own bloodlust, revealing their flaws and shortcomings during the fight. Naturally, Chen Yang stood on the moral high ground to criticize them. "What qualifications do you have to criticize me?" As his words fell, the scene fell into a deathly silence. Especially the person Chen Yang referred to as a rogue, who immediately covered his pockets with both hands, his face full of panic. He was indeed a notorious thief in the cultivation world. During the chaos, he hadn't even realized he was stealing, and now upon regaining his senses, found his storage bag nearly full of the belongings and treasures of everyone present. He dared not expose his identity, so he had remained silent. Now unexpectedly, he was pointed out by Chen Yang. Instantly, he felt like crying, but had no tears. Had he known, he wouldn't have followed the crowd to attack Chen Yang. What a foolish decision. Hearing Chen Yang's words, everyone instinctively checked their pockets, then cast unfriendly glances at the rogue. "My weapon is missing. It must have been stolen by you. Hand it over. My tens of thousands of spirit stones are gone. Damn it, where are my underpants? No wonder I felt a chill down there when I woke up. My heaven-grade skill manual, a fairy sword, 10,000 top-grade spirit stones, and dozens of 9th-grade pills, where have they all gone?" A middle-aged cultivator, shabby and disheveled, said with a straight face. The surrounding cultivators looked at him strangely. "At least make your lies a bit more believable. With your pitiful appearance, if you had any one of those items, you wouldn't be in such a state." The rogue's face turned ashen, and he was at his wit's end. Damn, isn't this bullying an honest person? He had indeed stolen, but how did so many things he didn't have get mixed in? Have some shame. Soon the tension in the scene smoothly shifted from Chen Yang to the rogue. Chen Yang curled his lips, appearing quite uninterested. The few individuals releasing their blood energy in the sky noticed the commotion below and furrowed their brows. This kid only knows how to rely on his tongue and won't accomplish anything great. Interesting. I wish I had come earlier. I am quite interested in that backhand grab. The one who said this was naturally the drunken elder. The elders exchanged glances, speechless, while hastening their efforts, releasing spiritual energy that surged towards the drunken elder. They just wanted to resolve this matter quickly and return to their cultivation. The massive blood chi dragon in midair was propelled by this force, immediately shaking its body as it began to crumble inch by inch, then transformed into wisps of blood mist that drifted in the air. This made it even easier for the demon palace to absorb. A whirlpool appeared above the light curtain, an astonishing suction suddenly swallowing a mouthful of blood qi. Instantly, a refreshing sigh echoed in the void. This sound could not be heard by low-level cultivators, but the elders present heard it clearly. What's going on? Fan Jinzi asked in confusion. However, just as he finished speaking, his expression suddenly changed. He shouted at the few elders casting spells. Not could stop immediately. But it was too late. That sigh seemed to come from ancient times, appearing distant, yet quickly becoming clear at their ears. On the walls of the palace below, a surge of black gas emerged. The black gas transformed into an old face brimming with murderous intent, its features marked by a heavy aura of death, and its pupils suddenly released blood qi that spread all around. Die! Die! All shall die. The massive black face slowly uttered a few words like a god of death, descending, instilling a sense of fear in the hearts of everyone present. As the words fell, a wave of deathly aura instantly emanated from within the palace, beginning to surge towards everyone within the light curtain. Fan Jinzi in the sky wore a gloomy expression, looking quite displeased. I miscalculated. The sword sect's ancestor speculated that the demon palace is a living entity, but no one believed it. I didn't expect it to be true. The other elders looked at the black-faced figure below, in confusion, their expressions heavy. They and the entire cultivation world knew very little about this demon palace. They only knew that the demon palace appeared once every 1,000 years, and whenever it emerged, it would bring a bloody slaughter to humanity, affecting the entire race, and even the cultivation world. As long as it was fed enough blood qi, it would quiet down for another 1,000 years. But this sudden change caught them off guard. Follow my lead and forcefully break through the light curtain. Fan Jinzi pondered and quickly spoke. Then he raised the sword in his hand, a greenish-blue sword energy manifesting around him, as if spring had arrived, reviving all things. The evergreen sword technique, all things arise. This technique embodies the essence of life, containing extreme vitality, but the end of life is death, making this sword also filled with the meaning of death. With one swing, the sword, carrying the momentum to destroy heaven and earth, struck directly at the light curtain. With a loud bang, the greenish-blue light blinded everyone's eyes. Under the disdainful gaze of the black-faced figure, it directly pierced through the light curtain and struck the palace. However, this attack felt like striking cotton, like a mud cow entering the sea, causing not even a ripple. Then the black face suddenly exerted its strength. The aura of death swept over everyone, and all felt their life force draining away, being absorbed by that palace. Only one person was an exception. Oh, what is happening? My lifespan. Master Fan Jinzi, save me. Cries of despair echoed from the crowd, and those who came into contact with this deathly aura instantly aged. For cultivators, their cultivation level represented their vitality, and both were interdependent. The loss of vitality significantly lowered their cultivation level, leaving them with no room to resist. Chen Yang watched this scene deep in thought. My lifespan is infinite. If this demon palace seeks to absorb my vitality, would it cause its own demise? But he merely pondered and did not take action. The large face of black gas not far away looked rather formidable. One should not be too ostentatious. In midair, after Fan Jinzi missed, the other elders unleashed their powerful sword energy. A destructive sword energy converged, resembling a swarm of locusts, leaving no blade of grass unscathed. Heavenly might, sword technique. Swift wind slash. Half a lifetime of carefree liquor, a sword shattering shadows towards the journey. Whoosh. The sword energy rushed towards the black gas giant face, with several elders at the integration stage, and a tribulation transcendence master joining forces, their power sufficient to threaten a nascent great being. However, the black gas giant face looked at the combined sword energy with even more disdain, then gave a slight snort, and a long sword made of black death energy formed, meeting the sword energy. As the two clashed, the sword energy from the sword sect was shattered. But it was not over. The long sword formed from death energy shattered the sword energy and continued to pierce through, heading straight for Fan Jinzi. Not could quickly dodge. Fan Jinzi shouted loudly and immediately evaded. The long sword grazed his cheek, striking the air and creating a rift in the void. After stabilizing his figure, Fan Jinzi was drenched in cold sweat. He had just been closest to this long sword and felt a terrifying energy emanating from it. This demon palace was simply not something they could contend with. The remaining elders exchanged glances. If even the master had to evade, they had no chance. Confronting it meant death. What should we do now? Qing Lingzi looked at the cultivators below, who were howling in despair, their vitality completely drained, with a troubled expression. What do we do? Of course we flee. The carefree Jiumengzi exuded an easygoing aura. Running away when unable to fight was not shameful at all. Impossible. A righteous aura appeared between Fan Jianzi's brows. Having grown up in the sword sect and instilled with the ideology of righteousness, he could not simply watch thousands of cultivators die before his eyes. Looking at the thousands of pleading eyes, he could not harden his heart. Qing Lingzi, this is the sword master charm. I will go down and do my best to rescue that Tianyin saint body. If I do not return, the position of master will be temporarily held by you. Once the Tianyin saint body is capable of great responsibility, you can decide the master's position. Fan Jianzi tore the sword master charm from his waist and threw it to Qing Lingzi. Then he plunged downwards, not giving anyone a chance to persuade him otherwise. Master. The others were deeply moved. Even the carefree Jiumengzi could not help but gasp in surprise. An extraordinary name in the world who can match in 1,000 years. Below it was like a hellscape. The once vibrant cultivators were now like withered husks drained of life. Not a single drop left. A dying cultivator murmured before death. Just as he saw the banks of the yellow springs, a sudden sword energy severed his connection to the death aura. It's the sword sex Fan Jianzi. He has come to save us. Everyone exclaimed, as if they were parched men in a desert seeing a pool of clear spring, filled with excitement. After saving several similarly dying individuals, Fan Jianzi turned his figure, heading directly toward. His primary goal was to rescue Lu Jinyao, as the importance of the Tianyin saint body surpassed that of anyone present. Ignoring the protective shell enveloping Lu Jinyao and Chen Yang, he overlooked it completely. A mere small defensive barrier can block a tribulation transcendence cultivator like me. What a joke. Chen Yang, who was watching the show, saw Fan Jianzi suddenly approaching and hurriedly waved his hand to stop him. Don't come over. My martial arts technique is still active. I'll injure you later. Due to the distance, Fan Jianzi did not hear what Chen Yang was saying. He only saw Chen Yang excitedly waving at him. He could not help but frown. Why was this kid so agitated? He wasn't here to save you. He thought Chen Yang was waving to urge him to save him quickly. With that thought, Fan Jianzi snorted and directly ignored Chen Yang. The next moment, he approached the protective shell. Suddenly accelerating, he intended to break indirectly. But with a loud bang, Fan Jianzi slammed into the turtle shell as if he was stuck to it, lying in a mess. At this moment, Chen Yang's helpless voice rang clearly in his ears. I told you not to come over. Why don't you old fools ever listen? Fan Jianzi felt as if he had lost face. If he weren't a tribulation transcendence cultivator with an incredibly strong body, that impact could have killed him. Ahem. Fan Jianzi cleared his throat awkwardly and flew back into the air. Quickly take down the shield. I will save her now. You two go out. Such a good deal. Chen Yang was somewhat puzzled, feeling as if he was a mere accessory in this. However, since Fan Jianzi said so, Chen Yang still followed his instructions to remove the Xuanwu back armor. After all, Fan Jianzi's strength was not to be underestimated, and he seemed quite upright, likely not speaking falsely. After removing the Xuanwu back armor, Fan Jianzi did not hesitate, directly grabbing Lu Jinyao by the hem of her clothes and lifting her up. Stay here and do not move. I'll be right back. Saying this, he directly lifted Lu Jinyao into the air. Lu Jinyao quickly reacted, anxiously looking down at Chen Yang. She saw Chen Yang cursing below. Didn't you say you'd take me with you? Seeing this, Lu Jinyao couldn't help but feel worried. Senior, please take my master with you as well. Your master? Fan Jianzi asked while flying. Lu Jinyao nodded. Oh, Chen Yang could be considered her half-master, and in such a situation, she could not abandon him. Her eyes were determined. If you do not take him, I will not leave. I want to stay and accompany him. Fan Jianzi frowned immediately. Taking just you is already quite a strain. If I take that kid, as well, it's possible all three of us might perish in the hands of the Demon Palace. Don't worry, once I safely take you out, I will definitely return to save that kid, and this group of people below, not a single one will be left behind. Fan Jianzi's tone was resolute, as if he were saying he would wash his hands of this after completing this task. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Jinyao's heart trembled. Why did she have an ominous premonition? As expected, the colossal black face below, witnessing Fan Jianzi's audacious defiance, and even daring to flee with another person before its very gaze, let out a furious roar from its maw. Die! Instantly, a massive black hand coalesced in midair. The moment it manifested, it lunged directly toward Fan Jianzi's position. Fan Jianzi felt every hair on his body stand on end. A terrifying aura of death washed over him, compelling him to accelerate. But he was no match for this demonic palace. The giant hand tore through space and overtook him. As the hand loomed inches from closing, Lu Jinyao squeezed her eyes shut in terror. If only I hadn't relied on this old fool to save me. Staying beside Chen Yang would have been safer. Master! Several elders hovering in midair cried out in alarm and plunged downward without hesitation. Safety no longer mattered. Just as their master had chosen self-sacrifice, so too would they. Lu Jinyao! Chen Yang shouted from below, his expression taut with tension, and yet faintly relieved. Good thing I didn't run off with that old fool after all. Yet no matter how desperately they cried out, the colossal hand clamped unyieldingly around both of them. A sudden ravenous suction surged forth, draining their very life force. Chen Yang's brow furrowed deeply. Fan Jianzi's cultivation was formidable. He would not perish quickly. But Lu Jinyao hadn't even reached the qi refinement realm. Her vitality was barely a morsel for such a drain. She might vanish in an instant. There was no time to waste. With that thought, Chen Yang leapt skyward, his body levitating as he fixed his gaze upon the monstrous face in the distance. Ugly wretch, your grandpa stands before you. The colossal face did not deign to glance his way, leaving Chen Yang deeply affronted. Hovering defiantly in midair, he pressed on, "Hey, you ancient relic. What joy is there in siphoning these weaklings' life force? Stop comparing yourself to others. If you must compete, measure whose lifespan endures longest. Dare you drain me? Mine stretches far beyond yours. Boy, you've grown weary of life. This is no foe you can challenge. Find shelter now while you still can." Chen Yang was among the few present untouched by the drain. Seeing his reckless provocation, the arriving sword sect elders recoiled. This wasn't courage, it was dancing on the razor's edge of annihilation, and urgently ordered him back. Would Chen Yang retreat? Ignoring the elders' commands, he continued hurling insults at the monstrous visage. "Look at your grotesque mug. You resemble a top-lane brute straight out of myth." The elders froze in place, stunned speechless, as Chen Yang's tongue flowed like honeyed venom. "Boy, cease this slander. Flee at once. Let us handle it." Regaining their composure, the elders barked at Chen Yang, shot them a scowl before retorting, "Who's bluffing now? Look at your pathetic faces. You think you'll handle it." Then he paused. Something felt amiss. He'd lost himself in rage, insulting the elders alongside the monster. They exchanged glances, then, unable to bear it any longer, prepared to subdue this disruptive upstart first. But before they could act, they witnessed their master deliberately offering his own life force to shield Lu Jinyao from absorption. No more delay. We save the master first. With a thunderous cry, they launched themselves toward the grasping hand. Chen Yang, undeterred, kept cursing. "Hey, deaf mutt, did you leave your eardrums at home? Shall I carve your epitaph for you? When the east fails, the west shines, just as dim-witted as you are. What an exquisitely bizarre creature. You're neither man nor specter." As he railed, Chen Yang brazenly drew near the colossal face, channeled spiritual energy, and delivered 2 resounding slaps across its vast countenance. At last, the monstrous face reached its breaking point. Waves of necrotic chi surged toward Chen Yang with desperate, unrelenting fury, and Chen Yang dared not underestimate them. "So, you've finally come." He closed his eyes and drew a deep, steady breath. Meanwhile, with the face diverting all its necrotic energy toward Chen Yang, the pressure on Fan Jianzi and the other cultivators plummeted dramatically. In unison, they struck and shattered the grasping hand holding Fan Jianzi. Fan Jianzi exhaled slowly. In those brief moments, the demonic palace had siphoned over a century of his life force. Though negligible for a tribulation transcendence expert, life force was irreplaceable. No one ever possessed too much. The cultivators below sensed the draining necrotic chi recede. One by one, they stirred back to awareness and broke into expressions of stunned relief. "We're saved. Surely the Sword Sect rescued us. Our deepest gratitude to the Sword Sect for saving our lives." They bowed low toward the sect members hovering in midair. Yet Fan Jianzi and the elders wore grim, unsettled expressions, eyes locked downward. Lu Jinyao reacted first, wrenching free from Fan Jianzi's grasp and plunging toward Chen Yang. Fan Jianzi seized her wrist instantly. "Girl, are you courting death?" "No, I must save him," Lu Jinyao insisted, her voice unyielding. "You cannot save him. No one can." Fan Jianzi declared, his brow rigid with resolve. "Then standing idle is surely worse than acting. You claim to save lives, yet who truly saved ever?" At her words, the Sword Sect cultivators flushed with shame. They were powerless against the demonic palace, utterly incapable of rescue. Their earlier valor had been mere bravado. Fan Jianzi would not let Lu Jinyao rush to her doom. Swiftly, he sealed her consciousness with a suppression art, rendering her unconscious, then tossed her toward Qinglingzi. The Tianyan sacred body must not perish. "Qinglingzi, guard her well. The rest of you, follow me to save that young man." The onlookers below heard Lu Jinyao's words clearly and stared incredulously toward Chen Yang. Preposterous. Could this utterly inconspicuous, seemingly timid youth, who'd remained hidden the entire time, have saved them all? They'd sooner believe pigs could ascend trees. Yet why hadn't Fan Jianzi or the elders refuted her? Could it possibly be true? Amidst their confusion, Fan Jianzi and the elders were already surging toward Chen Yang. Had he not drawn away the demonic palace's wrath, they would never have broken free. Chen Yang stood motionless, eyes tightly shut. The instant the necrotic chi touched him, he'd been pulled into another realm. Pitch black absolute, where even his outstretched hand vanished from sight. Only his spiritual sense pierced the gloom. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. A gray-haired elder seated cross-legged on the ground, utterly still, breathless, lifeless, like a statue carved from stone. Chen Yang nearly sighed in relief, until his gaze fell upon the elder's face. 2 enormous, vivid palm prints burned across his cheeks. Familiar, unmistakable. A pang of guilt flickered within him. Abruptly, the elder's eyes snapped open, blazing with incandescent fury, locking directly onto Chen Yang. Chen Yang recoiled in shock. Holy, he's alive! Then the elder spoke, the voice resonating like celestial thunder, shaking the very fabric of reality. I have endured 10,000 years, yet you are the first to dare strike me and slap my face. Chen Yang hurriedly waved his hand. A misunderstanding, all a misunderstanding. Yet the old man paid no heed to Chen Yang's protestations. Humph, what misunderstanding? I will drain you dry. With that, the old man pinched the air toward Chen Yang. In an instant, Chen Yang felt as though the throat of his fate had been seized. An invisible giant hand imprisoned him, rendering him utterly immobile. A sucking force streamed from the old man's palm, continuously drawing away his life force. Chen Yang frowned. Uncertain which of them would perish first, he felt no assurance in his heart. A chime sounded in his mind. Ding ding. Detected host life force is draining. Initiate seize mode. The single tone echoed, coming from the system that had slumbered for a century. Had that contrivance not manifested of its own accord, he might have long since forgotten he possessed such a treasure. Now things steadied. Though restrained, Chen Yang's lips curled into a faint, knowing smirk. The old man almost tore Chen Yang's mouth in fury, but restrained himself, offering only a scornful snort. Death at the doorstep, and still so brazen. Come to your end. He then intensified the suction. He wished to see how much of this youth's lifespan could be drawn forth. Chen Yang no longer hesitated and issued the command to the system. Outside, those who watched saw him stand foolishly still as his life force drained away, and their faces went blank with disbelief. If you cannot resist, at least struggle a little, someone muttered. And at a moment like this, you still dare to smirk. Does he think himself a war god? Fan Jinzi noticed the change and hissed a warning. Strike with everything, save the boy. He had no certainty of success, yet at this moment there was no option but to try. If the boy died within, Lu Jinyao would surely take no kindly view of them. More importantly, his own Dao heart might be damaged. Could they let Chen Yang fall into peril and simply walk away? Boom. Several fierce blades of sword chi struck that immense visage, but only left shallow marks, as futile as scratching through a boot. The onlookers were stunned. Even the head of the Jin sect, a tribulation stage powerhouse, could not contend with the Mo Palace. How formidable, then, was this Mo Palace? One strike failed, then another. Several Jin sect elders launched attack after attack, yet to no avail. Fan Jianzi's face grew grave. The elders could only shake their heads and sigh. This child cannot be rescued. Fan Jinzi still wished to attempt it, but was restrained by Jiumengzi. This is fate. Do not be reckless. While the Mo Palace occupies itself with him, send the others out. The rest will be up to his destiny. Jiumengzi spoke with a hint of regret as he glanced at Chen Yang standing there with a foolish smile. He had been intrigued by the youth. At the instant Chen Yang threw himself forward, Jiumengzi had almost wanted to take him as an inner disciple. But he realized it was all an illusion. What he could do now was only wait and later collect Chen Yang's body. Fan Jinzi nodded. He discerned the order of priorities. The group guided the cultivators within the light barrier, slashing the veil with their swords to emerge outside. Having sent a number of cultivators out, a crowd stood beyond the barrier, quietly watching Chen Yang within. Jiumengzi said in a low voice, displeased, "This youth is at golden core, 500 years of lifespan at most, should sustain the Mo Palace for 3 days. We'll make plans after 3 days." Qing Lingzi carried the fainted Lu Jinyao before the assembly and fretted aloud. What will we do when that girl awakens? One could tell from how Lu Jinyao had sought death for Chen Yang that their bond was not simple. Another elder snorted. The Tianyin sacred body is a supreme existence. What merit has that boy to win its favor? Rest assured, when this is over, I shall instruct the girl in cultivation. The immortal road is long. She will forget in time. A mere passing traveler. The elders sighed, gazing upon the Mo Palace with tangled thoughts. It was not Chen Yang they lamented so much as the revelation of the Mo Palace's strength. Henceforth, it could not be handled with crude methods. Some of the cultivators rescued nearby did not immediately depart. Instead, curious, they stared at Chen Yang inside, and at the impotent Jin sect elders. Time slipped by. 3 days passed. Below, Chen Yang remained in the same position, unchanged, even in. Ordinarily, as life force is drawn away, one's features would wrinkle and age. Yet Chen Yang seemed possessed of inexhaustible vitality, resisting decay. Jiumengzi was the first to voice suspicion. This youth is odd. Qing Lingzi's eyes shone with acuity as he tapped his chin. Could it be that his true strength is not golden core, but that he conceals his cultivation with some secret art? This may be advantageous. Wait and see. Fan Jianzi opened his eyes and said calmly. Once more silence fell over the scene. A month passed. Lu Jinyao had long since awakened and clamored to rescue Chen Yang, but seeing his serene composure and being restrained by the Jin sect elders, she too became another spectator. Throughout that month, Chen Yang appeared ageless, not a trace faded. His crooked, sinister smile remained unchanged. Something's wrong. After so long, even refining void cultivators should have been drained. Perhaps he carries some longevity elixir. Observe and wait. Half a year passed. Xiao Mingzi, cradling his wine-gourd and flush-cheeked, could not help but exclaim, by the heavens, this must be a monster. After half a year, Chen Yang had not grown older. On the contrary, he seemed to grow more youthful. It was utterly preposterous. If it were me, I'd have been drained long ago, Chen Lingzi mused. By now the attitudes of the Jin sect folk had subtly shifted, from initial worry for Chen Yang to quietly hoping for his demise each day. I can no longer bear it. This boy is uncanny. Perhaps I should descend and test him. Xiao Mingzi set down his gourd and wiped his mouth. No sooner had he spoken than he felt an icily fierce gaze pierce him. Lu Jinyao glared at Xiao Mingzi like an enraged wildcat. If he dared to harm Chen Yang, she would instantly end her own life. Now she understood her peculiar constitution and the value she held for the Jin sect. Faced with that, Xiao Mingzi could only force a sheepish chuckle, unbeknownst to them all within the black realm of the Mo Palace. Slap. Are you convinced yet? Convinced. Who do you think you are? Oh, quite impressive. Do you have some background? I'm for you scared now. Not scared, but next time you act tough, could you please not do it while kneeling? It puts quite a bit of pressure on me when I have to hit you. Chen Yang slightly raised his hand, showing a look of difficulty. The old man, on the other hand, knelt on both knees, his face covered with red handprints. Even so, there was still a hint of defiance in his expression. Though he knelt, he had pride, refusing to submit. Even I told you, no one in this world can make me submit, not even you, the old man said firmly. Chen Yang was exasperated. Ever since he began draining the old man's life force, the old man had immediately caved. Despite beating the old man countless times, he could not extract any information about his background and identity. The old man was all soft, yet his mouth was hard. Not convinced, huh? They'll beat you to death, Chen Yang said, instructing the system to increase the extraction intensity. Yes, it was no longer the demon palace draining Chen Yang's life force. Instead, it was Chen Yang absorbing the life force from this demon palace. As the intensity increased, the old man's eyes widened in terror. Stop, I. Slap. Another heavy blow twisted the old man's mouth. Don't say anything, I understand. Since the old man was as stubborn as a dead duck, Chen Yang decided to drain him dry and make a run for it. I. The old man tried to speak again, only to receive another slap from Chen Yang. What do you mean, I? You don't want to submit, so I don't want to hear it. I. Slap. Not listening, turtle reciting scriptures. I submit, big brother, I submit. The old man was slapped several more times, finally revealing a look of utter grievance as he spoke loudly. Why didn't you say so earlier? Chen Yang was taken aback, surprised. The old man looked even more wronged. Did you give me a chance to speak? Well, now that it has come to this, I will no longer hide. Although I don't know how you managed to drain my life force, it doesn't matter anymore. The old man slowly stood up from the ground, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression regaining its arrogance as he began to pace around Chen Yang. To tell you the truth, I am the ruler of this world, as well as the owner of this celestial palace. The dominion of all things in the world belongs to me, the master of all cultivators. Slap. A sudden heavy blow left the old man stunned, spinning in circles. Speak plainly, Chen Yang said impatiently. The old man returned to his previously aggrieved demeanor, no longer daring to act big in front of Chen Yang. In fact, I am the heavenly law of this world. Chen Yang, are you kidding me? Seeing that Chen Yang was skeptical, the old man hurriedly explained. I am not exaggerating. I truly am the heavenly law of this realm, appearing only once every 1,000 years to maintain ecological balance. This world requires absolute balance. Cultivators absorb the spiritual energy from the heavens and the earth, but where does this spiritual energy come from? If I weren't maintaining it, this world would have long collapsed. So your point is the wool comes from the sheep? The old man nodded, saying, exactly. Then explain why your palace affects people's minds. Upon hearing this, the old man's expression immediately dimmed, and he lowered his head in silence for a long time. After a while, he raised his head, revealing a serious expression. Anyway, this world cannot last much longer. Telling you this is not a problem. Actually, there is a natural balance between heaven and earth. As the heavenly law, I only need to oversee all things. However, 10,000 years ago, a strange force descended from the sky. Their target was me. Thus I became what I am now, needing to draw blood energy once every 1,000 years to maintain balance. Otherwise, both I and this world will be doomed. After hearing all this, Chen Yang felt as though he had listened to an ordinary story. It seemed like fantasy novels were always written this way. But what does this have to do with me? And then, Chen Yang asked blandly. And then, my time is drawing near. It can only hold on for another 100,000 years. I need to find a successor within this time frame. The old man looked at Chen Yang. Young man, I see great potential in you. You have the makings of an immortal. How about get lost? Chen Yang didn't give him a chance to finish, slapping the old man hard. What a joke. He just wanted to lie down. This damned heavenly law lived such a constrained life, he was not so easily deceived. Sigh. The old man sighed softly, stroking his aged face without getting angry. Now that this matter is settled, I should fall into slumber. Then go to sleep, Chen Yang said impatiently. By the way, could you stop the draining? I will really die, and not only that, countless beings will perish because of you. The old man waved his hand, and a projection appeared before Chen Yang. Within the projection was the myriad of beings in the world of cultivation, humans, demons, and various trees and plants bustling about. A vast vitality was also injected into this world along with the projection. Chen Yang felt that rich vitality which was essential for this world. At that moment it felt as if he had dreamed a dream, as if the one who infused this vitality was himself. He now believed that the old man was not spouting nonsense. All the blood energy he absorbed ultimately transformed into vitality benefiting this world. System stopped the absorption. He stopped the system's greedy absorption. After all, he had a long life, and that vitality was of no use to him. After stopping the extraction, the old man finally breathed a sigh of relief, looking at Chen Yang with piercing eyes, as if in deep thought. Young friend, this matter is settled. See you in the next millennium. He clearly sensed that Chen Yang was extraordinary, so he anticipated that in the next millennium Chen Yang would still be around. However, Chen Yang waved his hand in annoyance. Let's hope we never meet again. Damn, every time he saw this palace, it never led to anything good. As soon as he spoke, Chen Yang felt himself return to reality, and the surroundings erupted with a loud rumbling sound indicating that the palace was falling into slumber. Under his feet, a massive crack opened up like a giant mouth of an abyss about to swallow Chen Yang whole. He quickly got up to evade, continuously cursing that so-called heavenly law. Revenge, this was blatant revenge. If he had known, he would have absorbed for a bit longer. Was this how humans act? Chen Yang grumbled, but the crack beneath him expanded wider and wider. No matter how he tried to escape, he could not keep up with the speed at which the crack was widening. Meanwhile, the old man sat deep within the palace, watching Chen Yang leap around outside with narrowed eyes. We will meet again.